times on camera. Please log off Zoom if you need to leave the meeting and log in when you are ready to join the meeting. If you experience broadband or internet connectivity problems while participating in the meeting, that would be remedied by joining without video. You must announce the reason for your non-appearance when you turn off your camera. Before we take roll call, commissioners in the room, I've been asked to ask you to use your teacher voice because folks in the back oftentimes cannot hear us. So I know it's hard to keep that teacher voice up all the time, but please do your best. We will now take roll call. Recording secretary, will you please call the roll?
Annette Brown. Here. Catherine Williams Brown. Here. Day Cardenas.
Present.
Carol Cotton.
Present.
Tom Cruise. Christopher Davis.
Present.
That's a good teacher.
Michael Delatorre.
Present.
Deborah Erickson.
Present.
Anna Marie Francois.
Present.
Bruno Shire.
Present.
Bonnie Clark.
Present.
Ira Litt. Macias.
Present.
Monica Martinez.
Present.
Erin Pauley.
Present.
David Simmons. Phone use off.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner De La Torre, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind everyone about the meeting procedure before we get to today's agenda. This meeting is being conducted at the Commission office and via Zoom. We have commissioners participating from the Commission building and also via Zoom. Public has the option to attend the general session of the meeting at the office or participate remotely through Zoom webcast or US toll-free phone number. The meeting room technology includes built-in microphones, speakers, cameras, and monitors. Please note the ceiling microphones are always on and will pick up everything that is said at all times. So please be aware that anything that is said in this room will be captured on the archived recording of the meeting. Therefore, side conversations should be kept to a minimum, if at all, while in this room. Members that are participating by Zoom or are connected to the Zoom meeting, please mute your laptop speakers, microphones, and mute yourselves on the Zoom video. Commissioners attending the meeting via Zoom that would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Because this is a hybrid meeting, we will need to conduct each vote by roll call. We would like to ask the members of the public who attend the meeting via Zoom and would like to make public comment to check their Zoom identification. Your Zoom identification is the name used when logging into the meeting. It is important that the Zoom identification is accurate so we can call on you appropriately during public comment. Next, we will cover the public comment procedures. The committee chair will announce when it is open during the presentation of the agenda item and ask for anyone who wishes to comment to notify the meeting moderator. Individuals who attend the meeting at the commission office will need to submit a request to address the commission card to the meeting moderator. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak. At that time, the individual will be able to approach the podium and share their comments. Individuals who join the meeting via the Zoom webcast will need to click on the raised hand icon to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling their Zoom ID. At that time, the individual will be prompted to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. The Zoom ID name used by the members of the public to join the Zoom meeting will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Individuals who join the meeting through the US toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual it is their turn to speak by calling their phone number and will allow them to unmute their telephone. That time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. Please note only a partial phone number will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker to speak on a particular agenda item. I ask that you keep your remarks brief and focus on the particular item you are speaking to. Please note this meeting is being recorded. After the meeting, the archived audio and video will be available on the Commission's website. Before we begin our regular business, I would like to welcome Deborah Erickson to the Commission as the ex officio representative of the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities. Dr. Erickson serves as the Dean of the School of Education at Point Loma Nazarene University, where she leads undergraduate, graduate, and adult education programs across multiple regional campuses. With more than 25 years of experience in P20 education, Dr. Erickson has built a distinguished career in academic leadership, accreditation, and educator preparation. A graduate of Pacific Lutheran University, California State University, and the University of the Pacific, she brings a strong foundation in curriculum development, faculty mentorship, and strategic planning. Her leadership is marked by a deep commitment to creating culturally sustainable environments, growth, inclusion, and a sense of shared purpose among educators and students. She previously has served 2 terms on the Commission's Committee on Accreditation, is currently a Commission's Board of Institutional Reviewers member, and held leadership roles with the California Association of Professors of Educational Administration and the National Council of Professors of Educational Administration. A published scholar and she has authored numerous articles and book chapters on educational leadership, program assessment, and faculty development. And I just want to lift up the fact that you have served the Commission in these various roles over the past years. And so how perfect that you are now a member of the Commission as an ex officio member. So welcome to the Commission. You want to say a word or two? You don't have to.
I feel honored and humbled to be able to sit at this table. And after watching your work over years, I appreciate all that you do on behalf of the students, K-12, K-20 students in California. It's important work. And I am deeply honored to be able to share this work with you.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. All right, item 2A is the approval of the April 2025 minutes. We will now open for public comment. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public? There are no public comments. Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. We will need to make 2 separate motions to approve the ad hoc committee and regular session minutes. I'd like to remind everyone that only those who served on each committee can make and second the motion to approve the committee minutes. As a reminder, the ad hoc committee members are Danette Brown and Shireen Pabre. First, do I have a motion from a member of the ad hoc committee to approve the April 2025 ad hoc committee minutes? I have a motion by Commissioner Brown. Is there a second? Is there a second?
She did.
Oh, she did. Okay. And now will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Danette Brown. Aye. Hearing Pabre. Aye. Motion carries.
Next, do I have a motion to approve the April 2025 commission meeting minutes? Thank you, Commissioner Davis, second by Commissioner Macias. All right, any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Danette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Darrell Cotton.
Aye.
Stephen Davis.
Aye.
Michael Delatory.
Aye.
Bruno Shire.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark. Aye. Mencius.
Aye.
Becca Martinez.
Aye.
Wang Yuzoff. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Colleagues, I would like to start the educator preparation committee no later than 10. So please keep that in mind during our reports. The next item is to be approval of the June 2025 agenda. We have an insert for agenda item 2C and revise items 3C and 3D. We will now open for public comment. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? We have no public. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do you have a motion to approve the June 2025 Commission meeting agenda? Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Mancias. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Jeanette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Carol Carlton.
Aye.
Bud Davis.
Aye.
Marco De La Torre.
Aye.
Peter Guino Shire.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark. Aye. Ruben Mencius.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Fang Yuzoff. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll now open for public comment. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? There are no public comments. Do commissioners have any regular session items they would like to discuss? Commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session? Yes.
I would like to discuss in closed session item 91, Daniel Alvarez Ibarra Jr. We're talking about consent, right?
Yes.
Am I right? Okay, want to make sure I was in the right spot.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Martinez?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would like to, and thank you for the clarification. We're talking about the consent calendar. I'd like to pull number 71, Cameron Shins, in closed session.
Any other commissioners? Okay. Do I have a motion? There's one more. I'm sorry, Commissioner De La Torre.
Should I state my recusals now?
Yes.
I need to recuse from item 55. Anna Jarovich. 70. 88 Broomfield. And also CS6 Williams, CS10 Anthony Martinez, and CS13 Monterrey Rompal.
Thank you, Commissioner De La Torre. Any other commissioners? Hey. We have a motion to approve all remaining items on the consent calendar. Yes.
Approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Jeanette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Carol Carlton.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Peter Guino Shire.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ruben Mencius.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Fang Yuzoff.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right. Good morning again, colleagues, and happy Pride Month. As we end another school year, I want to thank each of you for what you do every day for your students, their educators, and family and community members. I share my gratitude with you at the end of the year is unparalleled in so many ways that I couldn't imagine this time last year. To the teachers, counselors, and school leaders who serve on the commission, I am so grateful for your dedication and high quality work on behalf of your educators, students, and their families. And to our higher education partners and community partners, thank you for all that you do to support the next generation of educators. I'm so proud to serve with you. To Executive Director Sandy and Commission staff, thank you for your tireless efforts on behalf of California students and educators. What a year this has been. We look forward to hearing all the updates on what has been accomplished. And to our district and state leaders, thank you for your unwavering commitment and actions to protect and educate all students, regardless of background, zip code, or immigration status. The media has been replete with recent examples of advocacy and bravery to keep all students, families, and community members safe. These stories both tug at our hearts and fuel our continued advocacy and action. Whether you are in PK-12 or higher education, the end of the school term is marked by commencement celebrations. When I was Dean of the College of Education at CSULB, commencement was my favorite day of the year. I loved seeing all the smiling faces of the graduates and their proud family and friends. But this year was different, with the presence of ICE officials at schools as faculty and staff prepared for graduation ceremonies. These actions are unconscionable. As our governor recently stated, the deployment of federal soldiers in LA doesn't protect our communities, it traumatizes them. Kids are afraid to attend their own graduations. People are afraid to go to work. We are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, and seamstresses. These are not criminals, these are families. This is not public safety, this is tyranny. Make no mistake, our new educators are facing challenging times. Class of 2025 graduates will be facing a future of censorship of ideas, history, and an intolerance for diversity that is unprecedented. And as we have seen, we are not immune to these forces in California. So in this moment, as I often do, I choose hope and inspiration. This time from Donovan Livingston, an educator and poet, whose commencement speech nearly a decade ago at Harvard continues to feed my soul. Here's an excerpt. He says, "I am a movement, an amalgam of memories America would care to forget. My past alone won't allow me to sit still, so my body, like the mind, cannot be contained. As educators, rather than raising your voices over the rustling of our chains, take them off, uncuff us, unencumbered by the lumbering weight of poverty and privilege, policy, and ignorance." I was in the 7th grade when Ms. Parker told me, "Donovan, we can put your excess energy to good use." And she introduced me to the sound of my own voice. She gave me a stage, platform. She told me that our stories are ladders that make it easier for us to touch the stars. So climb and grab them, keep climbing, grab them. Spill your emotions in the Big Dipper and pour out your soul, light up the world with your luminous allure. To educate requires Galileo-like patience. Today, when I look into their eyes, all I see are constellations. If you take the time to connect the dots, you can plot the true shape of their genius, shining in their darkest hour. Executive Director Sandy.
All right. I've got to pull it back together now, Madam Chair. Thank you. Appreciate that. I really do appreciate your comments. Thank you for bringing those into the air. And good morning, commissioners, team, and to our education partners. This is our 3rd of 6 meetings this year, so this is our midpoint, and we have got a large agenda for you today and a lot of action coming forward, representing, you know, culmination of significant projects that have been underway for many years. So I'd like to do 4 things in my report. First, I would like to welcome Deb Erickson, who has been a partner in this work for many years. And we are so fortunate to have you at this table with your voice, any table, but this one in particular, you'll be a very welcome participant. So thanks for being here. Next, I'd like to announce that Miranda Gutierrez, who has been with the Commission for 10 years, has been appointed to be an administrator for accreditation in the Professional Services Division. This is a position she's been serving as interim in for several months, and we are so lucky to have her moving into this role. She came to us from St. Hope Public Schools, where she was director of admissions. She began in professional services as an analyst doing accreditation work, then moved into an assistant consultant position, then to consultant, where she has been the lead on all things related to English learners and bilingual education for us. Most recently, Miranda has been co-leading the literacy certification work with Cheryl Hickey and the whole professional services team. She enjoys the policy work in PSD and is looking forward to supporting the division in this new capacity. Miranda is a graduate of CSU Stanislaus with degrees in public administration and criminal justice. So welcome and congratulations, Miranda. So the next thing I would like to do, since we are, let me just ask, can you hear me in the back? Okay, good, very good, thank you. Just when you can't hear us at any point, we'll step it up. So the next thing I'd like to do is give you a mid-year report on the priorities that we announced in February. And I'm going to be using both hands and my mouth at the same time. So this is a dance. We set 9 goals and identified those and discussed those back in February at our February meeting. And I'd like to take you through each one of them with a quick update on where we are. So our first goal had to do with the Senate Bill 488 work, where our goal was that the literacy program certification process would be completed this year, and all literacy performance assessment models will be implemented this year. That's what we said in February. So as of now, we have 95 institutions, 229 programs, and 520 pathways that are in the final phases of approval. You've already, by virtue of adopting your consent agenda, approved a number of them. We hope to have the remainder on your August agenda for full certification, which has been a monumental lift for the field, for every program, and for our staff. And this is a very nice piece to bring to culmination here this summer. So we also had a requirement in Senate Bill 488 to complete a literacy performance assessment, which we have done this spring. We field tested the LPA for multiple subject ed specialist and the early childhood K-3 credential. You've had some of the reports of those field tests on your prior agenda. We have another one for you today. The field tests gave us very strong indicators that we are ready to launch the literacy performance assessment, which is on your agenda today for approval. And not just for the CalTPA, but for all 3 models. So we are making very good progress, and we'll have a report on your agenda on the overall effort with Senate Bill 488. I think this may be our last report to the legislature, but this has been a multi-year effort and significant point of completion on this as we move into full-scale implementation across the state. So our second goal had to do with some work that came out early from our work group on the RDI-TPA, review of the development and implementation of teaching performance assessments. There we go, the 1263 work, which has been looking at our performance assessments. And their early recommendations that were brought to you at an earlier meeting had to do with some interim improvements that have been tested this year and are going into full implementation in 2025-26 in the next year. So we are expecting to see a significant reduction in condition code use in the scoring of performance assessments, which will make, we hope, a significant difference in the experience that candidates have and that programs have in bringing the candidates along. This is some of the changes involve allowing video edits and a number of other things. I'm not going to go through them because I have a 10 o'clock deadline here to get to. But in any event, significant work has been undertaken in getting all of those performance assessment systems updated to deal with the issues raised by condition codes in a new way. So our third goal had to do with completing the California standards for the teaching profession refresh. Our goal was to have them ready and implemented and a continuum of teaching practice released to the field. The commission adopted the updated CSTP last year, and a revised continuum of teaching practice was released to programs or will be released this summer. And programs our induction programs are subject to these standards and will be providing evidence of their transition in January of 2026. So the fourth goal area was to sustain Senate Bill 1263 implementation. And our work group, our mighty little RDI-TPA work group, finished their work and have recommendations on your agenda tomorrow for tomorrow's discussion and consideration and adoption. After which the commission will be designing a full-scale implementation plan for your consideration, probably in the August agenda. I want to just share with you some pictures that we took from the RDI-TPA work group sessions in this very room. And I want to say these are pictures from the RDI TPA work group. But these pictures, we have similar pictures, and from every work group that we put into place and every single thing we do that involves policy that will change credentialing or in some way impact what's happening in the field has a work group just like this that we consult with the field in order to bring to you something that's fully understood and informed by the various perspectives that have to live with our policies. So congratulations to that group. We're excited to present that work to you tomorrow, and the co-chairs will be here to do that with us. So our fifth priority was sustaining the educator credentialing system, streamlining and improving applications, licensing and discipline case management systems, continuing to move to a paperless process for all licensing activities. So we have the infrastructure, and 4 of 15 credentials have been added to the Commission's online system, which is gigantic leap forward from paper review to online review. But slowly but surely, we're going to get to the end of the list, and it will be a new day then. We have been working on just updating our major systems and looking deeply at them to make sure they're hitting all the goals that the Commission has, and that work is going very well. I think the staff is energized by the opportunity to pause for a moment and look at where are we, where do we need to be. And it's an exciting and energized time here with the staff in our certification and discipline units. Our 6th area of work had to do with working on our data and grant systems to yield accurate and clear information about candidate progress and success to support research, policy development, and local continuous improvement efforts. We have a series of new dashboards to view performance assessment, passing rate data that are under development and being reviewed internally, but will be available to the public once that review is complete. Our goal is to make that happen by the end of this year. And our data team is working to establish data reporting standards for all of the different data reports that we produce for you and for the public and for the legislature. So that group is also working tirelessly on that set of systems. Priority 7 was to sustain our subject matter review work and to streamline that following the passage of AB 130 a few years ago. We are working on to develop clearer specifications for programs on transcript review and hope that we will have some information out, late summer, early fall to really support that process in the field. Our priority areas include multiple subject and special education, followed by math. We're kind of working to bring specifications into greater clarity. We expect to revise our subject matter requirements and our CSET examinations as part of the kind of long-term work on this, which is exciting and timely. Priority 8 was to initiate a revised child development permit. And the Commission in February adopted a new child development permit matrix based on the work of our work group in child development. We have been working and had a Commission meeting, I think in April, where we discussed recommended areas of emphasis. And we've taken the feedback from the Commission in the field and are considering how best to approach that. Expect to have something on your August agenda around that. We are also looking at the performance expectations that were developed in 2019 for this permit structure to make sure that they really are current and focused in all the ways that the field and the Commission expect them to be. We expect to have proposed regulations approved by the spring of 2026 and be moving forward with adoption in that space as well. More slides. Priority 9. Am I on 9? Yes, I am. Was to initiate an examination refresh and alignment. So all of our Commission adopted examinations expected to be updated to reflect current standards and practices. On the short term, we have existing contracts that are currently being updated for continuation. I think that was on your consent agenda this morning to get that work going for the short term. In the long term, we have ongoing development of specifications for future examinations to ensure we're aligned with the Commission's goals and priorities. So one more system that we are putting up on the rack to look at very carefully in today's context as we move forward. So finally, I guess we had 10 and not 9 priority areas. I can't count apparently. but has to do with administrative services. Our administrative services credential standards and expectations and assessments are expected to be updated this year to reflect, again, current practices and needs. We had to put in a staff request to help us in this area, and the budget, I believe, includes 2 FTE for us to come in and allow us to do the kind of deep dive into administrative services that we need to do. We are putting together our work plan and outline for your approval for sometime this fall. And we're pleased and delighted actually that the governor's budget is supporting this work. So that's a mid-year update on progress we're making relative to the goals that we said we would be working on this year. The last thing that I would just like to say is that, I mean, this is significant work. All of this is really significant work. And this agenda is touching kind of the arc of everything we do. Which is what a great thing that we have so much action to bring forward for your consideration today. And earlier this year, I learned of the passing of 2 of our great former leaders in this organization. Dr. Dennis Tierney, who was an administrator and an interim director of professional services for, I think, around 6 years with the commission in the 1990s, and had been faculty in a number of institutions in the state in teacher education. We brought him in to work on that decade's version of an update to our accreditation system. And his engagement with the field, he was one of the most engaging humans and one of the funniest humans I've ever heard give a speech. Dennis Tierney, delightful, wonderful human being, willing partner in almost any conditions. He left us to go join the Episcopal Church as a priest. I'm not sure what that says about, working at the commission, but we've had him praying for us ever since. And I take that as a good thing. So he passed, unfortunately, earlier this year. It's a moment that I, for one, having worked very closely with him, hold close in my heart. Another recent passing that I just learned of this past spring, but occurred 2 years ago, is the passing of Dr. David Wright, who was the director of professional services here when I came in the 1990s, and came to us from UCLA and was a pioneer in launching the California New Teacher Project, which was our effort in the late 1980s into the 1990s, looking at how can we provide coaching and support to new teachers in such a way that we stop the revolving door. If you get into practice, you find out, oh, this isn't what I thought it was, and you leave again. Those were the beginning seeds that were sown for our induction program. Some extraordinary work with the field to build the first ever set of California standards for the teaching profession, which have been an anchoring guide for us for 3 decades now, in terms of what it is we expect teachers to know and be able to do, standards for the profession. He also was the leader of our Senate Bill 1422 review of the whole credentialing system. The report and recommendations of that work set the stage for passing of Senate Bill 2042, which put in place most of the pieces of our credentialing and preparation system that we're currently working on, and currently today working to revise and update. David was an extraordinary mentor. I feel that he was somebody who put me on my path to this particular position, and was very sorry to hear of his passing. But as a colleague said recently, with the passing of these 2 leaders, we have to reflect on the halcyon days of the 90s of teacher preparation policy. Some very significant work got done, and we are the inheritors of that work and the custodians of that work going forward. And I just wanted to honor their memory, David Wright and Dennis Tierney.
Thank you, Executive Director Sandy. Thank you for the reminder of those great leaders upon who continue to rely on and do the work. It's come to my attention that we have some public comments, and so I'm going to allow for that. And so
Brian Ward.
I'll remind our speakers to please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Right here is okay.
Table, please.
So I'm a teacher at Highlands Community Charter School. I started in January 2016. I was about 25 pounds lighter at that time. And so currently I have an adult teaching credential. And I've just been informed that I'm going to lose my job because I don't have a K-12 teaching credential. And I was told that, oh, you can start classes at UMass. Takes about 2 or 3 years, takes about $24,000. And in the meantime, you can't work during that 3-year period. So I kind of wanted to ask if it would be possible to get a little bit of a reasonable accommodation. It's not just myself. There's probably about 500 people at Highlands Community Charter School that are going to be affected. Probably about 10,000 students will be affected. Most of them are, well, about 40% of them are Afghan women. Based on the culture, a lot of these women, they're not allowed to go to Starbucks. They're not allowed to go to the public library. They're not allowed to do a lot of things. One thing they are allowed to do is to go to school to learn English. So that's kind of one of their only ways that they can kind of connect with the community here in Sacramento. And so this is kind of taking away kind of like a way for these women just to feel normal in society and just to be able to go outside and kind of do something and maybe, you know, learn some English, talk, and kind of get involved in the community. And unfortunately, the other members of Highlands are not all here, but there's about 500 of us that will be affected.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm good. All right.
Megan McMullen.
Board members, thank you for letting me speak. Like Brian, I'm a teacher at Highlands, and this is what I have to say. We're an adult serving charter school that has been rapidly forced into compliance with state credentialing requirements with devastating effects. Over 80% of our teaching staff was laid off. A few of us were rehired on the condition that we would complete a single subject credential. Not all of us were so lucky as to receive. Some of the teachers who were not rehired were the lifeblood of the school, serving with enthusiasm and loyalty for many years. It feels like a death blow and a huge betrayal to see them go. What we still don't understand is why we were given so little time to become compliant. Our adult ed credential was cleared with the CTC by working at Highlands. Whether appropriate or not, CTC must have been aware that this was happening. So on that basis, on behalf of my colleagues who can't be here, they're working, they would have had to take unpaid leave to be here. They would have forfeited their $2,500 departure stipend by coming here today. And so on their behalf, I would like to respectfully ask the CTC to grant Highlands more time for those teachers to complete their credential. Thank you.
Thank you both for your comments. Because this is not an agendized item, no action being taken. I would just remind our speakers, who just gave public comments, that the certification office within the commission is here to assist and to identify pathways forward. So again, thank you. All right. Do any commissioners have items to report? Yes, Commissioner Brown.
Person to speak here, and I'm glad to do it. And I have a whole list, and I'll try to keep it concise. First of all, thank you for your opening comments. And I'd like to report that at least in my community college, we had the highest number of graduates in our 50-year history this year. And it was full of lots of family members who could celebrate them, as well as at our recognition ceremony celebration where we had more family members and friends, and we asked them to stand up first and thank them for their support of the students. The second thing is, as I'm looking at this, I wanted to mention that I was able to attend, and it was great to have Aaron there at the California ACTEP meeting this last month. There's going to be a North and Southern California meeting. And at that meeting, we were able to talk about a lot of things about teacher education. It's really good to see the institutions of higher education continuing to collaborate. I look at two of my colleagues here. And also in support of expanding with AB 1123 to the commission with the significant work that's been done. And thank you, Mary Sandy, for all the work that you've done for decades on behalf of early childhood education. The final thing I want to just mention is that Stanford is doing a Principals Leadership Institute, which I think it's the first time they've been doing it. And I wanted to let you know that their byline was third grade success starts in preschool. So the focus is going to be on transitional kindergarten. And I looked at the agenda, and I've been asked to participate on the early childhood environment side. And they have, for all of you in early childhood, they have all the pieces there that would be needed to do an outstanding program and educate the principals. So I was really glad to see that piece about administration, because administrators make a big difference. And if principals know what's going on in their classrooms and their schools, they can support it. So I'm really seeing that as a one-year institute, and they're hoping to continue it. And I guess I'll leave it at that, because I'm looking at the clock, and so are you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Other commissioners?
Oh, could I do one more thing? Congratulations, Commissioner Cotton, on becoming a superintendent of West Contra Costa County. And that's right across the bay from us. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Commissioner Cotton, and then we'll go to Commissioner Erickson.
You let the cat out of the bag. Thank you so much. No, you're
Well, do tell.
I thought that this would possibly be my last commission meeting, since I did get the position as superintendent of West Contra Costa Unified School District recently. I'm actually on the job now. And I was asked by our state superintendent to continue in this role and to continue to represent the California Department of Education, which I am so appreciative of, and so just delighted to continue in this work. Stay connected to the amazing CDE staff. I see Zandy in the audience. I think Angie's there as well, Monique, possibly Kristen, just an amazing group of folks. And so yes, I survived my first board meeting last night. So all the things. I do have a few updates and announcements from CDE, if that's okay. I first want to start with talking about Juneteenth. So CDE encourages school districts and families to annually recognize June 19th as Juneteenth. Juneteenth is observed each year commemorating, I've celebrated Juneteenth, I believe, my entire life. Recently became a national holiday. It commemorates the emancipation of enslaved African Americans on June 19th in 1865. So we're proud to continue the efforts through our work to close our opportunity and achievement gaps, as well as celebrating the diversity and excellence of our Black and African American students in our schools. I also want to recognize June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. The CDE encourages schools and families to annually recognize June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month, it is vital to foster quality public education and learning environments that accepts all students for who they are. Every student deserves an education free from discrimination and harassment. CDE is also standing in solidarity and supporting our immigrant communities. On June 10th, State Superintendent Tony Thurmond joined legislators and members of the California Latino Caucus for a press conference and rally at the State Capitol Park World Peace Rose Garden in support of California's immigrant communities and in response to escalating immigration enforcement in the Los Angeles area. CDE stands with legislators and leaders to say that immigration raids are not making our communities any safer, but instead are causing harm to California's families. Clearly, the president is not trying to catch those who have committed crimes. He's trying to develop fear in the hearts of working people who just want to earn and pay taxes in the state of California. That's a quote from our state superintendent. We won't stand for it, and we will stand for the people of the state, immigrants, Black, brown, and all. So about half of our children in our state have at least one immigrant parent. 1 in 5 children in California are in mixed status families, meaning that they have parents who have different immigration statuses from each other. 93% of those children are United States citizens. Innocent children should not ever be in handcuffs, and families should never be torn apart by our government. I want to lift up our PRISM program, providing relevant, inclusive support that matters for LGBTQ plus students. PRISM is a 6-course cultural competency training for certified educators that provides resources to support LGBTQ plus youth. California Ed Code 218.3 was signed into law on October 23rd, 2023, which requires a 1-hour LGBTQ plus cultural competency training annually for secondary certificated staff. So beginning in the 2025-26 school year, our school districts will provide 1 hour of LGBTQ plus cultural competency training annually to all teachers and other certificated employees serving students in grades 7 through 12. The PRISM training is available online. It's online, and it's available beginning on July 1, 2025 at prismcalifornia.org. So please visit the site for more information. Just a reminder that in September of 2025, the Instructional Quality Commission, or IQC, will review an initial draft of the curriculum guide, followed by a public comment period from October 1st through the 31st of 2025, focusing on our personal finance curriculum guide. So very excited about that body of work that will be moving into our schools soon. As always, I do an update on national board certification. Our subsidy applications closed January 10th. There are currently over 4,000 teachers pursuing national board certification in California using the state subsidy. The state has approved subsidy funding for 898 new California candidates in the current national board cycle, and this is cycle 38. The subsidy program will cover up to $2,500 for the cost of certification for teachers working in high priority schools. And our incentive application closed on February 7th. We have 462 new incentive applicants preliminarily approved for cohort 4. The incentive is $25,000 in $5,000 installments over 5 years. Finally, our Move the Needle for student achievement, or Move the Needle on test scores, is a statewide strategy to maximize the impact of multiple literacy initiatives, including our literacy coaches and reading specialists grant, as well as other state funds that are focused on student achievement. We are trying to boost the achievement of over 2 million students who are receiving, in schools that are receiving those funds right now across California. We're very excited about that work, along with our screener our K-2 risk of reading difficulty screener. That approved list will be coming out no later than the 25-26 school year. but very excited about all of this work moving forward. So I've done 4 years, 4.5 years of working on getting these initiatives and this work into our schools. And now I get to celebrate it and I get to implement it within our schools. So it's just full circle. I'm very excited. And again, happy to continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cotton. And again, congratulations. We're glad for your new position and we're glad that you're going to continue on the commission.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have a report? Yes, Commissioner Erickson.
We'd like to thank the CTC for collaborating with the independent colleges and universities. As you know, we prepare almost half of the teachers for the state of California. And Aaron Sullivan was gracious enough to attend our last meeting and update us on the CTC work that's being done. We appreciate also that your work on behalf of the Golden State Grant. At Point Loma alone, we've given out $7 million in the last 3 years. So we hope that that program continues to grow and be funded at the state level. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner De La Torre.
I just wanted to add that the National Board Incentive and Subsidy have been very successful. That just as an example, this year we had the largest class of National Board Certified Teachers, almost 300, which was such a jump. It was the largest class ever, thanks to the incentive and subsidy. I'm sure. So we hope that continues. The funding continues. That it's made a tremendous impact in not only teachers getting certified, but also it will have an impact on the students of California.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm still using my teacher voice, so let me know if it becomes obnoxious, and I promise I will speak softer. I wanted to report graduation season has just passed, and with pride, we greeted graduates as they crossed the stage. I wanted to talk about some of the good things that have happened to some of our national board candidates. Speaking on behalf of the California Black Educators Initiative, as well as our Stanford BIPOC cohorts that we created 7 years ago. When I was at an occasion in Berkeley 2 weeks ago, I was able to hop on an elevator with Rafael Sadiq, which was very interesting because we almost didn't recognize each other because he saw me with this hat on. It says National Board California Black Educators Initiative. He goes, "Oh, you're a teacher." And I said, "Yeah, and you're a singer." And we had this interesting exchange, and he wanted me to say to this body and to all who are listening that he appreciates the work that California educators do, especially the public educators. And he was a public school protege of some great music teachers, and was invited to his show that evening. And he did a one-man show where he just praised the teachers of Oakland and Berkeley. And he talked about his experience in music classes that got him to where he is. And so he wanted to give thank you to everyone here. So that is from him. I also, in the same weekend, the next day, got to meet John B. King Jr., our former Cabinet Secretary of Education. And he remembered me from 13 years ago when I met him in Washington, D.C., near the White House. I didn't actually get to meet President Obama at the time, but he sends his regards as well. And he autographed the book for me, and we got to sit and talk for 20 minutes about the state of public education as he's serving as Chancellor of New York Public Schools. And it was a very interesting conversation about how, and he and I have parallel episodes, and I've told you all lots of stories about my upbringing in Compton and Watson and South Central Los Angeles. And he was raised in Jersey and in New York public schools as well. And he's had some, a very, very interesting life. So Teacher by Teacher, if you haven't picked up that book, please read that book. It is a powerful read about from the perspective of a public educator. Wanted to also congratulate Commissioner Cotton. Appreciate you doing the work out there in the field as superintendent, and also to welcome Commissioner Erickson. It's wonderful becoming acquainted with you and being my neighbor here. And then congrats to Commissioner De La Torre for being recommitted to this work here. Finally, I want to talk about the National Board Incentive. I understand that maybe it has been reduced to $20,000 now. Several of my candidates have gotten letters in the mail from the state of California stating that, you know, due to in that budget that we may be seeing $20,000 instead of $25,000 as that incentive, but still incentive is a good incentive. And as we move into our last, I believe, year of funding with our CTA BIPOC grants that I've been touting for the whole time I've been here at the commission table. I want to say that we do have the largest group of candidates ever, kind of mimicking or echoing what Commissioner Torrey said. We have so many talented teachers here in the state of California. It's just amazing when I get to meet them in person. And I had the occasion in Los Angeles and in Berkeley to meet about 300 educators from LA Unified, from Oakland, all over really, who are working hard in our classrooms to do the work. And also with our BIPOC candidates, we're hoping to get them all through this year because the funding is going to run out. So please wish me luck because it's going to be hard work to get all 4 of these components done.
We do wish you luck. The other commissioners have reports. Yes, Commissioner Francois.
I'm looking at the clock, Madam Chair, so I will be 30 seconds for that. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here again and to see everyone, so many people in the gallery today. I want to thank Chair Greneau-Shire for your beautiful, inspiring call to action this morning, which is another reason why I'll only be 30 seconds. And I want to thank Commissioner Cotton for reminding us of the significance of Juneteenth. And it reminds me, it always brings me back to why we sit at this table. And in this socio-political climate, in this, you know, Juneteenth and the history of that and where we came from and how we got here, it reminds me that as we sit at this table, that we need to remember that public schooling was never intended for the survival of young people. Public schooling was intended for the liberation and freedom of young people. And in this moment, it's more important than ever that we find opportunities in our policies and practices to create those opportunities for our educators to take advantage of it so that our young people can move in the world free to be who they are, free to use their voice, and free to create the kind of democracy that they deserve, that they are entitled to. So I did want to say that. And I wanted to also say, and the people who do that work every single day are our teachers in K-12 classrooms. And I always ask myself, but who's teaching the teacher, right? And I think that our teacher educators oftentimes do not get credit for their instrumental role in creating liberatory experiences for young people. And we see that in the UCs right now. There are teacher educators who are hosting summer institutes while at the same time protecting their families, protecting their neighborhoods, protecting their communities, and creating experiences for the next generation of teachers. We see it at UCR, UCI, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara. They are all engaged in summer work, not vacationing. And so I want to give a shout out to them. And then I also want to remind everyone that today the UC CSU Collaborative on Neuroscience, Diversity, and Learning is holding office hours to give educators K-12 and in higher education opportunities to learn how to better serve our most vulnerable population. So I'll leave with thanking all of you for the work that you do. It is my pleasure and my honor to work alongside of you. Congratulations to Dr. Superintendent Cotton. It has been an amazing experience to learn and grow with you around this table. And I'm going to have my eye up there at West Contra Costa County, looking at all the good work that's going to happen under your leadership. Congratulations. And to our new Commissioner Erickson, I would not had the pleasure of meeting you before, but welcome to our merry band of troublemakers. Put on your seatbelt, honey. It's going to be a ride.
All good trouble.
All good trouble.
Thank you, Commissioner Francois. Other commissioners? Going once, yes, Commissioner.
I know I'm over time. But I also believe time is sometimes socially constructed. And so we have to be in here. Somebody's clock might say 10, somebody else might say 10:03, somebody else might say 10:05. But good morning, everybody. Good morning to everyone in the audience, our public members. Thank you for being here. Good morning to all staff, to fellow commissioners, and also to our, maybe some of our students and candidates who may be watching or who are out there working summer school or applying for a job. Just thank you for being here. First of all, I'd like to say, take a deep breath. I know it's hard for some of you because right now my heart's palpitating pretty fast. And I think oftentimes we don't just sit back and say, hey, we made it. We made it through this school year. Exhausted. If you've ever run a race and you've had to fall over the finish line and your body collapses on you, you've made it through, but you know that you have to recover, right? And during that recovery time, you start to think about, what could I have done better? But at the same time, celebrate what you have accomplished. And I think that's why it's so beautiful to see graduation ceremonies for the class of 2025. It's so beautiful to see, to participate and just enjoy the moments. So many of you put in so much hard work, not just now. Some of you have been doing this work for 20 years, 30 years, 10. There's people who are before us. A lot of building blocks, a lot of foundational pieces. In order to build this house that is the commission, there was a lot of people that were before us, as Director Mary Sandy had mentioned. And there were a lot of great teachers who either inspired you to do more, do better. And so maybe you're here to do that work. Many of our students are candidates, the class of 2025. What a remarkable thing they've accomplished. With COVID, with everything that's happening in our society, they continue to reach a goal. So all of that, we have to celebrate these successes. Very important. You have to understand the work that you all do. You're doing tremendous work under these circumstances. Can we do more? We can always do more. Can we train better? We can always train better. But I urge you all to rest, to recover, to really reflect and appreciate what is happening and what we've done. But at the same time, don't forget. Don't forget why you're here, why we're doing this work. As Commissioner Francois has said, we're here to create opportunities. We're here to change future generations. Every time I sit at this table, I think about the work that we do, the impact that we'll have for the next generation. And we have to continue to engage in this work and be very mindful and be very thoughtful to hear from the public, to engage with the public, to engage with people out in the field. We have to just continue to appreciate one another's knowledge, expertise, lens. And so just a little bit from our field, from speech language therapists, school psychologists, school counselors, school nurses, anyone with a non-admin credential. These are all people that we know are essential, but with budgets, they're starting to be non-essential. We're starting to see that maybe they're not needed, but in reality, it's what the budget that we're having. And we know with budgets, it's allocation of funds and where those funds go. But these are people that are needed in our schools. These are people that are needed in the field. These are people that not just support students, they support families, they support teachers, they support administrators. I know that we are here to support everyone who's at that schoolhouse and even outside of that school. So I just want to remind you all that in this season, it's been a blur. Honestly, like if I go month by month, so much has happened. But during these summer months or these weeks that we get, I really take time to, what did we do well? What do we need to improve on? And how can we get better? And I do that every single year because I am one who always focuses sometimes on the negative, believe it or not, because I know I could do better. But I just want to say thank you to all. Thank you for the work that you do. I know you could all be on summer break right now on a vacation somewhere, but you chose to be here. And you chose to participate and you chose to make a difference in other students' lives and in other people's lives. So thank you for the work.
Can't see. Someone. Oh, yes. She is on. Heidi, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, I could barely hear you, and the transcription said something about my name turned into drinks. So I was like, are they talking to me? Good morning, everyone.
We disavow you of that. We are not drinking right now.
It's like the Midas touch, but different. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. As always, I've thoroughly enjoyed the comments this morning made by our chair and our executive director and everyone else. I appreciate you very much. And my updates are quick. In May, the state board approved the final round of community school implementation grants. This is very exciting as there are now nearly 2,500 community schools in over 500 LEAs. The statewide technical assistance system is poised to support the newest grantees. The board also approved a revision to the Level 1 Achievement Level Descriptor for the ELA Mathematics and Science Assessment to reduce redundancy and improve readability. The board approved replacing the word minimal in the Level 1 reporting ALD be replaced with the word limited. The language for the Level 2, Level 3, and Level 4 reporting ALDs would remain unchanged. Last month, the CDE released literacy blocks and literacy learning progressions for the early grades. This guidance is evidence-based and contains concrete strategies for educators, site and LEA leaders to ensure literacy instruction aligned to the framework for our state's diverse learners. The governor touted these resources in Compton earlier this month. And Commissioner/Superintendent Cotton shared about the personal finance curriculum guide, so I will skip that update, but I'm very excited about it. And lastly, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Erickson. This is another iteration of our work together, so I'm very excited that you bring your experience. It'll be a tremendous asset to the CTC. And Commissioner Cotton, I celebrate you and your accomplishments. I am so happy for the children of your district and the community. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, looking around, any other reports?
Madam Chair, yes, our student liaison was unable to be here today, unfortunately, but remembering that reminded me that the applications are now open for applicants to serve as our student liaison next year. Those applications are on our website. So please encourage anyone you know who's enrolling in an educator preparation program this year to consider this. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, let's begin the work. I now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Cardenas, will you please convene the committee? I'm going to suggest we not take a formal break. If you need to take a pause, please do so. Commissioner Cardenas, thank you.
I would like to call the June 2025 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. We have 7 items on the agenda. 5 are scheduled for today. The remaining 2 items are scheduled for tomorrow. The first item for today is item 3A, initial institutional approval, stage 5, consideration of full approval for institutions in provisional status. This item is being presented by Art Boyd and Francis Keller. This action item. Mr. Boyd, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you. This agenda item presents the following 7 institutions, stage 5 of the initial institutional approval process for the Commission's consideration of full approval. Huntington Beach Union High School District, Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, Lake County Office of Education, Paul School District, Benito County Office of Education, San Mateo Union High School District, and Yuba City Unified School District. On page 2 of this item, you will find a chart detailing the requirements of the 5 stages of the IIA process. On page 3 of the item, you will see a corresponding table noting when the specific institution completed the requirements of each stage. As a reminder, each stage of the IIA process has certain benchmarks that an institution must meet in order to move to each subsequent stage. Stage 1 requires an institution to attend an Accreditation 101 session and provide evidence of program sponsorship eligibility. For institutions of higher education, evidence of regional accreditation equivalent to WASC Senior College and University Commission accreditation must be provided. For local education agencies, evidence of governing board approval is required. Stage 2 requires an institution to provide responses to and meet the requirements of both the eligibility requirements and the initial program preconditions. The Commission then determines the institution's eligibility. If the Commission determines that the institution is eligible to become a program sponsor, the institution then submits responses to the common standards in stage 3. These are reviewed by members of the Board of Institutional Review and put before the Commission for consideration of provisional approval. If the Commission grants provisional approval, the institution moves to stage 4, where they provide responses to the program standards and program-specific preconditions for the proposed program. These are also reviewed by members of the Board of Institutional Review and are put before the Committee on Accreditation for consideration of program approval. If granted, the institution moves to stage 5 and begins operating their program for a period of 2 to 4 years, depending on program type. During this provisional period, the institution will have a cohort of candidates complete the program, and they will submit data annually to the Commission. At the end of this period, the institution will hold a provisional site visit. This site visit process begins with the site visit team coming together to review the institution's new responses to the preconditions, common standards, and program standards. The team then takes part in the site visit to conduct interviews with all relevant constituencies, look at data, and see how this information aligns to the evidence the institution provided in the aforementioned submissions. At the end of the process, the team makes an accreditation recommendation to the Committee on Accreditation, who in turn makes a recommendation of full approval to the Commission based upon all evidence provided in the site visit reports. I'll stop now and turn it over to Francis to go over the remainder of the item.
It's our pleasure to share that these 7 institutions with representatives here today have completed all requirements leading up to this point and are now before you for consideration for full approval. 6 of the institutions were found to have all common and program standards met, with a recommendation from the Committee on Accreditation for full approval. 1 institution, San Benito County Office of Education, was found to have all standards met with the exception of 2 common standards and 3 program standards, which were met with concerns. This institution site team visit recommended an accreditation status of accreditation with stipulations, with which the Committee on Accreditation accepted. Shortly following the visit, the Committee on Accreditation determined that the institution had provided sufficient evidence to address all stipulations placed on it well before the year allotted and changed their accreditation status to full accreditation with a recommendation to the Commission for full approval. If the Commission grants full approval to these 7 institutions, they will be assigned to a color cohort by the Administrator on Accreditation and will be subject to all requirements defined in the 7-year accreditation cycle. Again, we have representatives here from each of the 7 institutions available today to answer any specific questions you may have related to their site visit experience, and staff are available here to answer any process-related questions. Thank you.
We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Clapp.
And just a brief kind of general comment, because I bring this issue up frequently. And looking through all the documents, I just appreciate the efforts that these programs are making to make sure that mentors or coaches have, excuse me, have that they're placed at the sites where they're working with their inductees, and that there is time embedded within the school day for these mentor relationships to work. And so I just appreciate, because I call that out in looking over all of these programs, the work that they are doing to make sure that time is built into the schedule for the teachers. So thank you to the programs.
This is probably just a little one, but I really appreciate the way you set up the timeline. I'm just looking at it again. And what I like to do is read the reports of the provisional site visits. Okay. And when I, just so you know, FYI, when I got down to San Mateo High School, it was the Yuba City one. So I wasn't able to read that report. Probably a small thing. I just thought I'd let you know.
Oh, thank you for letting us know.
So Yuba City got in twice. Yeah.
San Mateo one's a good read.
I'm sure.
Any other commissioners? Online. Since there are other commissioners, this is an action item. Do I have a motion to either grant full institutional approval for the following institutions of provisional status, or Huntington Beach Union High School District, Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, Lake County Office of Education, Newhall School District, San Benito County Office of Education, San Mateo Union High School District, and Yuba City Unified School District? Or do I have a deny the full institutional approval to one of the more of these institutions?
So moved.
Move to approve.
Yes.
I have a first. Do I have a second? A second by Commissioner Mancias. Is there any further discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote? Remember, please respond with aye and abstain.
Jeanette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Earl Carter.
Aye.
Aye.
Bruno Shire. Aye. Bonnie Clark. Aye. Ruben Mencius.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Sorry, aye.
Fong Yuzoff. Aye. Motion carries.
I definitely, before we move on, I know Director Murray Director Sandy, you want to say something?
Well, you may have wanted to, we might be having the same thought at the
Maybe.
same time. So why don't you go first and I'll follow.
Well, I want to say thank you to the Committee of Accreditation. Also, congratulations to all of these institutions, because I know it's been a lot of work to go through all of these stages. And just the support that all of you provide to get these institutions to continue, especially after seeing that there were some stipulations and there were some assistance in those site visits. I know there's a lot of work that goes into this. So I just want to say thank you very much for that work.
Ditto.
With all that said, I just, that'll be all for this item. Thank you. Our next item is item 3B, the report to the legislator on the implementation of Senate Bill 488, teacher credentialing reading instruction. This item is being presented by Heather Kennedy, Cheryl Hickey, and Miranda Gutierrez. This is an action item. Can you please begin?
My computer died, so fortunately I'm old school. Right, good morning, commissioners. Commissioner Erickson, good to see you again. We are pleased to present the fourth report to the legislature on the implementation of SB 488 reading instruction. If the commission approves this report today, we will transmit it to the legislature in accordance with the requirements of SB 488. We know that you've read this report, so we won't go into it in great detail, but we wanted to touch on some of the highlights. So the report begins by reminding the legislature of what the SB 488 required the commission to do. And there were three major objectives or actions that the commission needed to take. So the first was to adopt new standards for preparation programs and teaching performance expectations related to effective literacy instruction. Among other things, these new standards were required to be in close alignment with the English Language Arts and English Language Development Framework, and of course the PK-12 academic content standards, and they needed to incorporate the California Dyslexia Guidelines. These new standards and TPEs were adopted by the Commission in October of 2022 and February of 2023 for implementation last July of 2024, and progress was reported to the legislature on this requirement in previous reports. The second major thing that it asked the commission to do or direct the commission to do was to certify that all programs have addressed very specific sections of the statute, specifically 44259, 4A and B. Last year's report began to provide updates on what the commission was doing around to accomplish this provision, and this year's report continues where that report left off. And then lastly, SB 488 required the commission to develop a performance assessment to replace the reading instruction competency assessment RECA examination. This year's report provides more detail on where we are with this effort. The item contains a general table on page 3 and 4 that provides an overarching look of where we are with the process of implementing SB 488. The chart that begins on page 4 through 6 is a more detailed look at the various activities that we've undertaken in order to accomplish those objectives. And Miranda and I will talk about the certification effort, and then Heather will talk about the progress being made on the development of the performance assessment. So the certification process began in full year last year with numerous discussions about the best way to accomplish what was asked for in SB 488. And as I said, SB 488 required that the commission certify all multiple subject and ed specialist programs, all of them. So mild mod, extensive support needs, visual impairments, deaf, hard of hearing, and early childhood special ed programs in the state to be in alignment with that statute. And the statute has a very specific list of objectives or content that must be embodied in a program. And those are listed on page 6 of your item, Roman numerals I through 5. So you'll see that there. These were the objectives that the entire certification was designed around. As I said, we previously reported on all of the effort to work with institutions, providing technical assistance on how to come into alignment with the new standards and how to address the certification requirements. We issued PSA 2401, which included the instructions for certification. And last year's report highlighted that we had established the process for including the types of information that programs would need to submit. And I would like to note that this technical assistance work with programs has only been enhanced this current year with numerous office hours and one-on-one support for programs on a continuing basis. In order to accomplish what the statute required and in the timeframe that we were allotted for this work, with all of the limitations doing this work, and that specifically is existing staff and volunteer reviewers. The process included the identification of those aspects of the parts of the standard and the TPEs that most appropriately and directly responded to the statute. So in October of 2024, where the report basically picks up, all submissions were due and the process began, like I said, in high gear. And meeting that tight timeline and ensuring a rigorous review that meets the provisions has been our constant priority throughout this whole time. There are a total of 229 programs, as Director Sandy had mentioned this morning, that have been engaged in this certification process. And the report highlights there's also been 520 pathways that those 229 programs are offered. And this number is significant because what it represents is all the various ways the programs are offered to candidates. These include, and when we're talking about pathways, we're talking about a traditional student teaching model, residency model, an intern model, undergraduate integrated model, a bilingual authorization concurrent model, dual credential models, and then any other specific institution devised model that may exist or combination. And that was important because institutions can develop those programs in any way they want. So their coursework can be exactly the same for all of their pathways, or they can be completely different, or they can be sharing some coursework, but not others. So in order to make sure that all candidates were getting instruction that was aligned to SB 488, we needed to make sure we understood how the pathways were offered at institutions and what coursework was offered for which pathways. So what's really important is we needed to make sure that we didn't wait till the end of the process to let institutions know if there was an issue. So we developed a three-phase review process so that we could have constant interaction with the institutions. So phase one was the very preliminary review to make sure that the institution's documentation, and that was in the form of a website. So the institution, they use usually their accreditation website that we require for regular accreditation activities. We looked at it to begin with very superficially, make sure that all the pieces were in and we could have access to their information. And as soon as we figured that out, then they moved on to phase two. And phase two was a significant amount of work. It was a consultant review, so the consultants here at the commission in the accreditation section. We looked at very specific parts of the submissions that didn't require advanced literacy instruction expertise. So some examples were things like making sure that the communication to their K-12 partners, to their mentor teachers, that had been done, to their candidates. We looked at candidate materials to make sure things like the candidates had been told there's going to be a literacy performance assessment starting in 2025. Those kinds of things we looked at. The other thing that consultants looked at was making sure that we could see pretty prominently that the ELA and ELD framework was somewhere in the coursework. We could see it very prominently, an introduction to what are these standards, what is the framework, and then whether they were embedded in some lessons and those kinds of things. And then lastly, we looked to make sure that the California dyslexia guidelines were embodied in the program. So even the programs that haven't come before you today, we can confidently tell you right now that all programs in California have embedded the California dyslexia guidelines because we've already done that work. We've made sure that they've either covered the dyslexia guidelines in whole, like they've asked their candidates to read it as an entire document, or they've covered it over chapters over time in the various coursework. So we spent a lot of time talking with institutions and going back and forth to make sure that all of it is being covered. And we know that a lot of institutions had to make some adjustments to make sure that they were covering all of that. And then phase three was, of course, review material by literacy experts. And this is the part that Lauren is going to talk about.
Thank you. As Cheryl mentioned, phase three of the review process includes the review of the program's curriculum and clinical practice. This phase of the review is being completed by external reviewers with literacy expertise to determine whether each program is in alignment with the requirements of SB 488. Commission staff provided training to 83 volunteer reviewers with literacy expertise. And as Cheryl mentioned, and of important note, the external reviewers include experts who volunteer their time to this process. And so we really could not do this work without them. So thank you to our volunteer reviewers. Phase 3 reviews and training began in January 2025, beginning with 1.5-day review sessions through March. As more reviewers became trained, we were able to shift to 1-day review sessions, and between January and June, staff held a total of 68 review sessions and also coordinated a number of asynchronous reviews. The Phase 3 review process has been facilitated by 2 administrators and 8 accreditation consultants with support from our accreditation analyst, who has helped maintain the database and transmittal of feedback to institutions. In addition to holding the review sessions anywhere from 2 to 5 days a week, commission staff began hosting office hours for institutions seeking support on their Phase 3 feedback. And these office hours were held each day that we had review sessions over the last 2 months. Programs were reviewed by a team of 2 to determine alignment with the requirements of SB 488. And for the areas where the reviewers did not see alignment, they provided written feedback to the institution. Institutions then have the opportunity to update their submission to address the reviewer feedback. And this is an iterative review process. So once reviewers determine all the requirements of SB 488 are met, the program is brought forward for final certification by the commission, which is Phase 4 of the review, Phase 4 of the process. And both Phase 3 and Phase 4 are currently in process. Now Heather will talk about the progress of the development of the performance assessment.
Thank you. So the literacy design team has been working on the CalTPA version of the literacy performance assessment since March of 2023. And you can see a list of the design team members in Appendix A, and they were charged with providing recommendations to develop the multiple subject education specialist and the new PK3 specialist instruction credential performance assessments to assess a candidate's competency in instruction in reading and literacy. And since our last report to the legislature in June of 2024, the design team has met 4 additional times, and they have 1 meeting remaining in July of 2025. And so since our last report, the design team has updated tasks and rubrics for the field test version of the CalTPA literacy cycle based on our pilot study data. They mapped the TE elements to the CalTPA literacy cycle rubrics, updated assessor qualifications and training for the CalTPA literacy cycle field test, and they provided input for program and candidate supports for the CalTPA literacy cycle field test for the field and for during operational administration. So CalTPA, along with EdTPA and FAST, are also have conducted their field tests and to include literacy in alignment with the provisions of Senate Bill 488, and are presenting their models for approval by the commission in item 3D. And you will get a lot more information on that later in today's presentation. So I will go ahead and turn it back over to Cheryl to conclude today's presentation.
Yeah, this concludes our prepared remarks, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. We do want to reiterate our deep gratitude for all of the reviewers and the volunteers that have assisted in all sorts of different ways on this endeavor. Their expertise was really invaluable and will continue to be invaluable, and their commitment to high quality literacy instruction is so apparent. We'd also like to acknowledge the many commission staff who have been working on this from different angles over the past few years. It's been a really difficult, complex task, and their dedication and teamwork has been remarkable. Again, the recommendation from staff is to approve the report for transmission to the legislature, and we're happy to answer questions.
Thank you. We will now open for public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Gibbons.
My name is Erin Gibbons. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a teacher in Orange County. And on behalf of the California Teachers Association, we want to say thank you for providing an update on the SB 488 progress. So thank you. We appreciate the efforts of the commission to work on our replacement for the reading instruction competence requirement. The reading instruction competence assessment, the RICO, is an outdated exam that did not support teacher candidates to increase their ability to teach reading. CTA is committed to ensure that there is meaningful teacher preparation that is embedded throughout the teacher training program in lieu of these high stakes tests. Thank you.
We have no other
Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any comments or questions on this item? Commissioner Poppins.
So I have a comment and I just want to say, this is for the junior. And so I want to say a big thanks to all of the commission staff and all of the, also to all of the numerous faculty, staff, administrators, who spent countless hours working, reworking. So thank you to everybody, and I know some of them are really close. We still have a few more. So very true. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Erickson.
I just also, on behalf of the privates, the support that you've given to the universities and being available to us has been very appreciated. Thank you very much. It was a big lift. Took a lot of time. The comment that I received was in some of the reviews, and we can talk about this offline. It was not looking at how they met the standard, but they told where the standard should, the reviewers had comments of where the standards should be met and how they should be met. So we can work that out later, but thank you so much for all of your work. That was a lot.
I just want to say thank you also for all the work, and there were so many people involved, and I appreciate when we get so many people to work on something, it's a lot of work. It's like impossible to get that many people to work together. So I appreciate all of that. And I'd also like to make a motion to approve this. May.
Are there any other commissioners? Do you have a motion on the table? Commissioner Bears.
I'll second your motion, Michael, but I also wanted to add my thanks to the team and all the volunteers. As you were describing it and reading through it, this has been such a critical iterative process that has informed the work along the way. So kudos to everybody. So that was a second.
Executive Director.
I mentioned this earlier in my report, but I also feel like this is a moment to just reflect on the extraordinary work of Cheryl Hickey, who has led this effort with an extraordinary team. Miranda, Heather, the Professional Services Division team, Aaron Sullivan. Occasionally I've been invited to come play, but didn't certify anybody, just talking politics. But honestly, Cheryl, without your knowledge and extraordinary work ethic, and a little bit of your anxiety about getting it done, we could not have achieved this milestone. And I think you deserve public thanks and recognition. And I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
And to Commissioner Poverty's comment, I would like to just say institutions have been amazing. They really have. They've asked us for, I need an extension because our faculty is going to go back to and think about this. And they have really taken this seriously, I think, and really made the changes that they felt like they needed to make. And they really have been amazing.
Commissioner Brown.
It's really underscored the thought that teacher preparation programs really are ready to take primary responsibility for teacher preparation rather than, this just shifts that away from an external exam that was found that not to be helpful. Thank you for doing that, because that's huge. Shift.
Any other commissioners? This is an action item. I just want to add, this was just such a huge lift in such a small window of time. When you mentioned 520 pathways, it's just like, wow, that's amazing. All those different opportunities. And thank you to the volunteers, to staff, really making this huge lift in this such a small window of time. So thank you. This is an action item. We do have a first by Commissioner De La Torre and also a second by Chair Shire. Are there any further discussions? Will the recording secretary please call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown. Aye. Vic Cardenas.
Aye.
Earl Cotton.
Aye.
Clifford Davis. Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Peter Shire. Aye. Bonnie Clark. Aye. Ruben Mencias.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Wrong use all.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Hickey, Ms. Gutierrez, and Ms. Kennedy. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Appreciate you. Next, we have item 3C, the update on the development of the Cal cycle and extended field test. It's being presented by Julie Holmes and Heather Kennedy. This is an action item. Ms. Holmes, will you begin?
Just 1 minute. Logging into Zoom, we have a presentation.
So that's fine.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. We do have a PowerPoint presentation to share because we are reviewing some data that's a little easier to see the visuals. Yes, you're welcome. So good afternoon. Well, good morning. My name is Julie Holmes. I'm one of the consultants on the performance assessment team, and I'm joined by my colleague Heather Kennedy, who's another one of the consultants on the performance assessment team. And we're so grateful to come before you today and share the final data and results from the math cycle field test. This might feel like deja vu because we were here in April presenting our results from the fall field test for PK3 and Ed Specialist, early childhood special education, and visual impairments. But at that time in fall, the Ed Specialist DHH, Deaf or Hard of Hearing group, needed an extension. So we extended the math cycle field test into the spring for our DHH group. And we also at that time decided, well, we have some more PK3 groups that would still like to participate and we need more data. So we opened up the field test again to PK3 as well. So we're here to share the final results from the math cycle field test. So today we'll kind of talk about quickly the methodology of the field test. We will go over the data results, the key insights that we have learned from our candidates, the program coordinators, the assessors, the cooperating teachers. It's all within the packet, but we'll give you the key highlights today. We'll go over some areas of growth and strength and what we're proposing moving forward to operational administration. That is coming up. A quick overview of what does the CalTPA math cycle look like. So just structurally, it's divided into 4 key steps. In step 1, the candidate is planning 1 math lesson, 1 UDO-focused, asset-based math lesson. Specifically for PK3, they have to also include the play-based learning as well. In step 2, the candidate teaches and assesses their instruction, and they video record their lesson and provide some written or verbal commentary to that. In step 3, they're reflecting on their effectiveness. And in step 4, they're applying next steps for math instruction for this group of students.
Right, so as we look at the methodology, you can also find this on page 3 of your packet. The total number of candidates that we had in this extended field test for PK3, we had 37 participants. And I don't know if you remember, but in the fall, we only had 17. So this was another great significant amount of data that we were able to collect. And then for our ed specialist, deaf or hard of hearing, we had 6 candidates. So a total N of 43, all of which were determined to be scoreable. The pathways that were represented in this field test, we had 14 that were university student teaching program pathway. We had 28 in our district intern pathway, and we had 1 that represented an integrated undergrad teacher credentialing program.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about scoring. So as Julie said, all of our submissions were scoreable in the extended field test, and they were all scored using a consensus model, meaning that 2 or more assessors were paired together with commission staff and had to come to an agreement on the score for each rubric. There are 8 rubrics in the math cycle, PK3 and the deaf and hard of hearing credential area, and they each have 5 levels of performance. Level 3 is the target level of performance for a beginning teacher candidate. And so there's a total of 40 possible points in the math cycle. The passing standard that was set for the field test was 14 points. And for our PK3 candidates, this was a consequential field test, meaning that they did need to pass in order to earn their preliminary credential, while for our ed specialist, deaf and hard of hearing candidates, this is non-consequential. Their performance assessment requirement does not go into effect until this next year for candidates who enroll after July 1st of 2025. So to speak to the candidate scores, our pass rate was 100%. All candidates who participated reached 14 points or higher within the extended field test. We had a mean score of 22.6. And our minimum score in the field test was 14 in the extended field test, and our maximum score was 31. And you can see some additional data in on page 7 in the table. And then there's some more data related to rubric scores in the appendices as well. Looking at the total score distribution, the green circle around 14 represents that cut score, the passing standard. So you can see again, no candidates in the field test scored below 14 points. And then it's a little bit difficult to see on the screen. I apologize for that, but that yellow circle that's around 23 represents that mean score that was achieved. And then the most assigned score was 20. So that was where we saw a cluster of scores from candidates within the field test. So taking a look at the scoring data, our bright spots, of course, was that 100% pass rate. That was really excellent to see. And that high mean score that was well above our passing standard that was set at 14 points. We also saw no statistically significant differences among our ethnic or racial subgroup pass rates. And then no scores of level 1 were observed on rubric 4. So that's great. Everybody scored a level 2 or higher. We did see, however, some areas for growth within scoring. So taking a look at rubric 7, we did see that there was sometimes a vague analysis or a summary rather than a reflection when taking a look at focus students in our ed specialist area. So we want to provide some more support in that area with how to look at an analysis or a reflection moving into our operational revisions. And then also looking in rubrics 1 through 4 and 6 through 8, we did not see any scores of 5 assigned, which is the highest level. So we're going to take a look at that going into operational. Let's speak to the survey and focus group feedback.
Okay, so we wanted to share some bright spots on the feedback. So this slide represents, we had some really great survey results from this extended field test. So 100% of candidates, coordinators, and assessors agreed that the math cycle supported authentic math instruction. So we really wanted to highlight that. The assessment guide was clear. That's very important that we are clear moving forward. That the candidates really appreciated having the option to support, to submit verbal, written, or American language commentary. The assessors also 100% felt prepared through their bias training as well as their consensus scoring training. Programs and candidates both use the rubrics for self-assessment, which is something that we highly encourage, and we really walked our programs through that as well. And anytime we had candidates in office hours, we would walk them through how to use the rubrics to self-assess their own work. And candidates felt confident in planning the next steps based on their students' understanding of math and ELD goals. So that was also a very important and bright spot in the feedback that we're on the right track with this math cycle. And so we wanted to share those good results. But it's not all perfect. And we wanted to really highlight the areas of growth, especially around the candidate experience. And that was something that we were really specifically looking at, is how they're interacting with this assessment. So there were two big areas of growth that we identified through the focus groups and surveys: that the clarity of directions and the rubrics. So we have a common glossary, and we have directions within the assessment guide. We have directions within the templates, but still some candidates reported confusion with interpreting those directions or the templates or the rubrics. So, and some pointed out, especially around their written commentary and video sequencing. So that's something that we're paying close attention to. We are revising instructions, prompts within templates, rubrics based on their feedback, just to improve the clarity and alignment within rubrics. We're talking with assessors. We're understanding how they're interpreting rubrics, so that does help us moving forward as we make these revisions. Another area of growth that we identified was the misapplication of math practice standards. So this is a relatively new concept, I think, moving forward with the math cycle, is that in the content standards, candidates must select a content strand or standard, and they must select a math practice. Now, the content standards, of course, are PT, the preschool transitional kindergarten standards, as well as Common Core for grades K and up. But also the math practice, there are 8 math practice strands and standards that they must select, that are those behavioral processes that support the content. And so in surveying candidates and looking at how they were selecting math practice standards or even omitting them, 63% felt confident that they felt confident. Many misapplied or even omitted those math practice strands or standards within their learning goals. So that is something that we're deeply looking at. We are revising our learning goal guidance. We've created Venn diagrams. We're offering detailed how-to explanations within the assessment guide. There's literally, pages of how to write a learning goal and how to incorporate the content with the math practice. So we just want to support that accurate application for the candidate.
Taking a look at all of the feedback we received from our surveys, our focus groups, from scoring, we have some plans for moving into the operational version to alter our Part C template in order to focus more on our focus students, to look at their adaptations, and to also have a focus on math, academic language, and learning goals. And to also have that additional support for, in step 3, reflect on reflective writing in order to see hopefully an increase in scores in that area. This is for all versions. And then looking specifically in the PK3 version, addressing a definition on play-based learning and adding a reference table to support that area. And then we did make some slight changes to the focus children, focusing on academic language, and then just reordering them as well from focus child 1 and 2. And then moving into our ed specialist deaf and hard of hearing area, which this was the first time we received feedback and data in that specific credential area. We are going to highlight a focus on IEP goals related to math content practices or academic language, or for well-being or behavior, depending on what aligns with their focus student choice. and shift the focus to one focus student for this area. It aligns more with their clinical practice placements and the variety that they may see within their clinical practice. And they can include additional students if that aligns with learning needs of their students. There was also a request on behalf of the assessors to include the K-12 ASL standards if their focus student uses ASL and incorporate that within the academic language learning goal. And to include some guidance for filming in a manner that allows the assessors to clearly see any signing that might be taking place within the classroom so that they are able to determine what is being communicated between the student and the candidate. And so the staff recommendation is that the commission adopt the CalTPA Ed Specialist DHH math cycle for operational administration beginning in the 25-26 academic year, and adopt a passing standard of 16 points across the 8 rubrics with no side conditions for the CalTPA math cycle for all credential areas for PK3 ECE, Ed Specialist, Early Childhood Special Education, Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and Visual Impairments for the first year of operation. This recommends a passing score of 2 points per rubric. And additionally, we recommend, staff recommends adopting a secondary passing standard of 14 points for the first year of operation. If this is approved, we would finalize the operational math cycle task rubrics, program guides, and support materials, align cycle 1 for both our general education and special education materials with the math cycle revisions for the 25-26 year, and then convene an additional group of educators for a standard setting study in 2026 and bring forward a recommended passing standard for commission adoption at the conclusion of that study. With that, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Public comment period is not, for this item, is now closed. The commissioners have questions or comments on this item.
Thank you for all this work. I'm excited about this. Doing all of this. I had a question about the score. I understand that it was 100% pass at 14. And I'm just curious why it was set at 16. If it was 14, the passing score.
The recommendation at 16 represents a score of 2 for each rubric. And the target ideally is 3 for a beginning teacher candidate. The score of 14 for the field test was, I believe, in order to be supportive for the assessment where it had not, the rubrics had not yet been used. And now that we've got that information and made some revisions, that we've had the opportunity to be able to gather that data. And I don't know, Executive Director Sandy, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Well, I think that's I think you've hit the high point on this, and that is we have 8 rubrics that are scored on a 5-point, and there are 5 points possible, with 3 being the target of, really real readiness to begin. So setting the standard for passing it at 16 represents, a recognition that this is a new form of this instrument, that programs are going to need to become facile with it, and that candidates are going to need to have every opportunity to learn what its expectations are. So setting it at 16 already reflects, recognition that not everybody may hit a 3 on the first time out of this assessment. When we go as low as a score of 14, we are allowing some 1s to occur. Again, that is breaking on behalf of candidates who may have not seen this kind of thing before, may have not understood understood how to apply the particular math practice or whatever it might have been. it's breaking on behalf of candidates to make sure they have every opportunity. But a score of 1, if you look at the rubrics, the scores of 1 are very low levels of performance. And taken collectively, if you had a whole, if you had 3, 4, or 5 scores of 1, my guess is that a preparation program would be reticent to recommend somebody for a credential based on the totality of their performance if they can't get higher than a 1 on this particular performance assessment. So I hope that this is helping to explain some of why we're recommending a passing standard of 16. But, based on policy, based on your previously adopted policy, acknowledging the need for a standard error of measurement so that candidates are not faced with something brand new this year, their programs are faced with something brand new, and it would unduly impact them. So I think what we found with the score of 14, we saw a very high pass rate within the whole of the field test participants. And we received your first report on this at our last meeting, and this is the remaining set of credential areas. So that's really the basis for our recommendation of this passing standard.
The only reason why I'm asking is because all of the work that went into, I appreciate all of the work. And then to see all the statistics that said that it was not statistically significant, the difference between the different ethnicities. We don't have any research that shows if there's going to be any statistically significant differences at a rate of 16. So do we know that will impact the different subgroups at that score rate? Do we have any data?
So we did model the pass rate at 16 points. So great question.
That's my concern, because you shared with us what it would be at 14. Yeah. So then I was wondering, would it impact it at 16?
So at a pass point of 16, our pass rate would be 91%. And that's for combined across both the fall field test and this one. And that's total across, and we would have had 9 candidates who would have not passed out of 102 candidates.
And how would that have impacted the subgroups?
Yep. And going into that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, we pulled the data knowing that we would probably get the question. So we're seeing I'm just going through this, and no groups would be under 91%.
So no statistic. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a no disparate impact score of 16.
Yeah. So yeah.
Sorry, I just had to go all the way down the table.
The cut score was 16, and that's really only out of 102 total submissions, which is not a statistically high number.
No, but it's a large, it's a very large number.
Yeah. So out of 102 from the fall and the spring field test, if the cut score was 16, 9 would not have passed. And that was an assessment that was field test beta form without the revisions that we and the data now.
The candidates would have a retake opportunity.
Right. And that's not factoring in the secondary passing standard either. So with the secondary passing standard, at 14, we have that.
And that's candidates who hadn't had an opportunity to see it ahead of time, right? Which in reality they would have. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I think I have Commissioner Cotton.
Thank you. I think along those lines, you mentioned the high passing rate. So it was a passing rate of 100%. Is that unusual? Is that normal? And so moving forward, what should the commission consider with such a high passing rate?
And the fall field test had a 98% pass rate. So I don't know how to answer if it's normal or not. I don't know how to answer that.
I don't think well, I think in the conversations that we've had over the last couple of years, I haven't seen 100%. I haven't seen 98%.
Right. I do think what we'll learn. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, keep going. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think we'll learn a lot during this first year of implementation.
Mhm.
And then we'll conduct that standard setting study, and then we'll have a lot more data to come back and say, you know,
Or
maybe
maybe
rubric by rubric, what's working, what's not working, where's an area of growth, things like that. Or, yeah, does it remain a high pass rate or not? It's hard to say.
Can I add to this? I think also with respect to the performance assessment work we've been doing in the last few years, the literacy performance assessment and the math performance assessment, we've introduced flexibilities to candidates. We have made adjustments in the basic form of all of our CalTPAs. Every single one of them has been this combed through, this set of new practices that would make it easier for candidates to have multiple modes for presenting their performance work, their portfolio work, et cetera. And I would like to believe that these changes have been informed by past practice and will enable more candidates to show more effectively and more accurately what they know and are able to do in relation to these things. So this is an improvement, a set of improvements that we tested in field testing this year. And next year, every form of the CalTPA will have all of these changes combed through. So our hope is by setting, and we're going to take up, I think, in item 3E, the passing standards writ large. Our hope is that in this first year of implementation of all of these changes, we're going to see a very different experience. Candidates will experience this differently, but that the outcomes will also be improved in ways that you have been driving us to seek improvement without lowering the standard per se. It's the standard is still meeting a level 2 as a beginning teacher is not a bad thing. And especially if you got 1-1 and 1-3 or 1-1 and 1-4, it's the beginning teacher set of expectations that we're really trying to hit the mark with. So this next year of full implementation, which we do every time we do a new implementation, we set the standard in a way that is not going to harm candidates to the extent that possible. And we hope to see maybe we won't, if we see 100% pass rate for everyone, that'll be a different reality than the one we're in. But, presuming this goes as we intended it to, we're going to see higher performances across the board. That's our goal. So,
I just wonder if then extending that into the first year, second year, third year in the classroom, is there ever a way for us to see kind of effectiveness, evaluation, something that lets us know that this experience that they've had and the mastery that our candidates have demonstrated prior to entering the classroom, are we seeing that it has an impact on what they're doing in the classroom? I don't know how we'll get there, but that'd be great to know.
I actually have Commissioner Brown and then Commissioner Youssef and then Commissioner De La Torre. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for this item. It was exciting to see. As a practitioner in the field, math has really been a focus for us. And I was excited to see the connection you're making with the math practice standards and the content standards, because those are discussions we are having every week at my school site in my district about how to really bring those together for students to be successful. I want to specifically, I guess, just elevate something that you brought up about the areas of growth or areas of consideration with regard to those math practice standards. I saw in the presentation that you said that some of the candidates, the ones who were not successful with this, they were either misapplication or omitting the math practice standards. And when I first saw that, I didn't understand what you meant by misapplication. I found that term to be confusing. So I went back to the agenda item and I revisited on page 14. And I read the narrative where you explained that candidates were confused and they were putting content standards in the place of math practice standards. And I thought, oh, I get it. So I don't know if they were misapplying it or they were just confused between what's a practice standard and what's a content standard. So moving forward, I think that making sure that we tease out if you omitted it, that might have a different solution than if you were confused about what a math practice standard is. I did see that you are proposing to revise the instructions, which I think will help the omission part, and strengthening the examples. So I just want to make sure we tease out those two things that we see candidates doing who are not successful, because I think they might require different supports moving forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Yusuf.
Thank you so much for this. As someone that works with a lot of in-service teachers on site and just seeing them practice, this is actually what we look for in how we teach our teachers in our, it's just learning that everyone grows, and I'm seeing that in everything that you're presenting. And I just want to thank you for that, because a lot of times I just remember like my experience with TPAs were very different from what our future teachers are going to have. And I just want to thank you for that. And that's all. I just wanted to, again, show my appreciation.
Commissioner Doctor.
Following up on the, when we do get their feedback, if they were not successful in reaching their goal, what kind of feedback would a candidate receive? Would they be told specifically where they did not achieve, or and also how would the cost be? How would it be cost prohibitive for them? Would they have to pay? Because I don't. And how long would be the time for them? Because all of this would impact their coming into the field. And how would this be equitable for a candidate?
So for the field test was at no cost to the candidates. And if they had not been successful for PK3, because it was consequential, they were offered an opportunity to retake it, but they didn't need to. So, which is great. So for operational, I think that'll probably be addressed in a later, probably through the RDI item. I don't think we're prepared to address that today in this particular item. But the going to the feedback component, they do get a score report, and it addresses the constructs of the rubric. So they get a report that indicates the level they scored and the constructs that are associated with that rubric. Our hope is to eventually move toward something that's a little bit more directed, but we're not there quite yet.
Well, can I give a recommendation that perhaps give more specific feedback to the candidate, where they would be more directed to where they can make an adjustment, so that when they retake the assessment, or if they can be directed to retake only a part of the assessment at maybe a reduced cost if they do have to pay, or if the retake would be at a no cost for them, or only a partial retake. And if that retake can be more expedited, it would be the process, so it wouldn't impede them from getting to work, or just anything to make it faster for them, because I know it's very frustrating for teachers, and it's very stressful, and it's anxiety ridden. So I'm just thinking about the teacher, and I've been in the position as well, having also taken high stakes assessments. So, and I know that the feedback, that if it can be very specific, the more specific the feedback can be, the more productive it is for the candidate as well, that they can prepare for the retake. And going back to the omissions or in the assessments, if it can be like if they can be told which, if it's the type of standard that you want, and if you tell them these are the content ones, which of these choose from these, and then these are the whatever, choose from these, then there wouldn't be confusion, like a drop-down menu.
Aubrey?
So thanks for this data, and it's good to see that there's, candidates are doing well on this assessment, and they're meeting the. One question, I guess I have two questions, and really that's math cycle will be up and running really, really soon. So my question is in terms of next steps, guidance to the field. And also, and I think I heard Executive Director Sandy say all the interim TPA guidance that is already in effect will be going into effect for this math cycle, right?
But to my knowledge, yes, that's, looking to Juliet to see if, give me a shake if I'm off base on this, but that's,
Getting the field geared up because there's gonna be a lot of work on each side to, change their programs, and you could potentially have students in the next 4 months ready to take these TPAs.
We're right.
We've already started doing some transition webinars and offering support for programs and anticipation of all of the changes coming up. And we have a whole
New materials.
calendar
web-
planned
yes.
for next year really already.
Kind of a big August launch of really credential specific CalTPA update webinars. So, we're hosting a PK3 specific new materials preview in August. We're hosting a very specific, just one for multiple subjects as well. So all the
low
credential
incidence areas.
and the low incidence areas, all the credential areas, they will have their own specific kind of walkthrough of the new materials. But also just to kind of, to your point, to gear up, this past spring, we offered these transition webinars where we showcased draft materials from the website. I'm so sorry, from the field test. So we showed the draft materials to kind of as a preview of what's to come. This is working in the field test. So most likely you will see these things in the operational versions. And we provided them with a crosswalk of the, if you're familiar with the evidence table in the CalTPA, step 1, 2, and the evidence that, the steps and the evidence provided. So we did a crosswalk of the 24-25 version and the draft 25-26 version, and we put that out to the field as well. So just providing a look at the materials, what worked in the draft, which with the caveat that this is a draft and things might change. The crosswalks, we also did a sample backwards planning map for programs. And the backwards planning map was just a doc item so that they could take it and tweak it and make it their own, but it walked them through the math cycle. We also, there was also one provided for the literacy performance assessment field test. And it just walked them through, if you were gonna backwards plan this over 6 weeks or 8, so whatever works for your program, here's a way that you might want to use that in your program. And we got some really good feedback on that too. So those are just some of the ways that we're reaching out to all of the EPPs. We have heard from them, and we know that they are anxious to get their hands on these materials. And so we just keep letting them know we're going to have the commission meeting this week, and we will have more soon. So.
And that is available on the commission's YouTube channel so that they can go back and reference it if they maybe missed it or, need a refresher. All of that is available to them. They can still access it.
Yeah, and just again, I know people are, as you well said, folks are anxious, and the sooner because making changes to our programs takes time. So the sooner we can get it.
Yes, thanks. Yeah.
Commissioners. Right, this is an action item. The commission has 2 distinct actions in front of it. We will take them separately. First, do I have a motion that the commission adopt the CalTPA Education Specialist DHH Math Cycle for Operation Administration beginning in the 2025-26 academic year with a passing standard of 16 points across the 8 rubrics with no side conditions for the CalTPA Math Cycle for all credential areas, PK3, CSE, DHH, and BI for the first year of operation. Mr. Torre first. Yes. We have a second. Commissioner Mancias, we have a second. I have a motion by Commissioner De La Torre and a second by Commissioner Mancias. Is there any further discussion? Recording secretary, please call for the vote. Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Nat Brown. Aye. Kate Cardenas.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Julie, can't hear you.
Fang Yuzhou. Aye. Motion carries.
Second, do I have a motion for the commission to adopt a secondary passing standard of 14 for the first year of operation? Commissioner Macias was first. Second, Commissioner Yusof. Is there any further discussion? The recording secretary, please call for the vote. Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Gerald Compton. Gerald Compton.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Akila Guno Shire. Aye. Brownie Clark. Aye. Mencias.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
Yuzhou. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holmes, Ms. Kennedy. Thank you for this work, and we actually look forward to what's to come. So thank you very much. At this point in time, I would like to call for a 10-minute break, if that's okay with folks. I know people need to get up and move around a little bit. So let's take 10 minutes. We'll be back at 11:33.
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone, for item 3D. Next, we have item 3D, the Literacy Performance Assessment Field Test Results and Adoption. This item is being presented by Juliet Waltleiner, Marissa Luna Lopez, and Heather Kennedy, along with Lori Kroger, Head CPA Evaluation Systems. This is an action item. Dr. Waltleiner, will you please begin?
Good morning. I'm going to share my screen with our presentation. To get that sorted. There we go. All right, so I am really excited to be bringing you what we have internally been referring to as our mega item. This brings to you the results of the 3 models of our literacy performance assessment field tests. And I just want to say that this is the culmination of a tremendous amount of work by many, many individuals, some of whom I am joined by today. So presenting with me today are Heather Kennedy and Marissa Luna Lopez, both consultants with the Professional Services Division, as well as Lori Kroger, who works with the Evaluation Systems Group of Pearson. Susie Brandel, who is the coordinator of the Fresno Assessment of Student Teachers, is not with us today. She is on a flight on her way to Alaska with her family, so I will be presenting her slides. But I want to begin by presenting for you just some brief background on the teaching performance assessments. As you know, Education Code sections 44320.2 and 44259.3 established the requirement that candidates must successfully complete a teaching performance assessment along with their coursework and clinical practice in order to be recommended for a preliminary credential. And so the TPA measures candidates' ability to plan, teach and assess, reflect, and apply in alignment with their credential-specific TPEs. Currently, there are 3 models of teaching performance assessments that have been approved for operational use by the Commission. Those are the CalTPA, owned by the Commission, administered by Evaluation Systems, EdTPA, owned by Stanford, operated by Evaluation Systems, and the Fresno Assessment of Student Teachers, or FAST, which is approved for use at Fresno State and administered by Fresno State. Also worth noting is that in 2019, Comro conducted a comparability analysis of the 3 models and found that indeed the models were comparable with one another. So moving on to the literacy performance assessment. You already heard the reports on SB 488, and as you know, SB 488 did require all approved teaching performance assessments to include a literacy component that measures the literacy skills delineated within that legislation. And so in the time since the bill's adoption, each of the models brought forth their own model of a literacy performance assessment for approval by the Commission for piloting and field testing. And so within the text of the actual agenda item, you have links to those previous agenda items, which include detailed analyses of each of these new versions, including their alignment with the performance assessment design standards,
and the literacy elements specified within SB 488. So, and you can see on the screen, or on the slide, the months when those items were brought forward. So though, we are excited to now be here today to bring you the results of those field tests. And this is an action item. So after presenting these results to you, I will be presenting the recommended actions for each assessment. And so with that, I would like to turn it to Heather and Marissa to present on the CalTPA.
Right, so we'll start with an overview of the field test. We began the field test by inviting preliminary programs to apply to participate. These applications underwent a review process conducted jointly by literacy experts and CTC staff. In total, we had 282 candidates participate from 27 programs. The candidates represented a wide range of credential areas, including multiple subject, PK3, and all 5 education specialist pathways, mild moderate support needs, MMSN, extensive support needs, ESN, early childhood special education, ECSE, deaf and hard of hearing, DHH, and visual impairments, VI. The largest group of candidates came from university intern programs, while the smallest group came from university private school programs. For more detailed information on the participating programs and pathways, please refer to Appendix C. The field test was launched with a webinar on November 20th, 2024, and the final submission deadline was on April 7th of 2025. Throughout this window, CTC staff provided support to both programs and candidates through webinars, scheduled office hours, and a dedicated literacy inbox. To score field test submissions, we recruited and trained assessors and created marker papers. For scoring, we implemented a hybrid model. Distributed scoring was used for multiple subjects, MMSN, ESN, and ECSE submissions, while consensus scoring was used for PK3, DHH, and PI submissions. We also gathered feedback from program representatives and candidates through surveys and focus groups. And we currently have a scheduled briefing window from June 27th through July 31st, 2025, to ensure all candidates have the opportunity to resubmit if needed. Now let's talk about the field test results. So out of the 280 submissions scored, 279 candidates passed, resulting in an overall pass rate of 99.6%. The mean overall score was 23.3, with the passing standard set at 14. There were 2 additional submissions that could not be scored due to missing evidence and were therefore not included in the pass rate calculation. And when we analyzed the data across ethnic and racial subgroups, there were no statistically significant differences in pass rates. For more information, please see Appendix E. When we look at performance across individual rubrics, overall rubric means ranged from 2.8 to 3.1. Candidates scored the highest on rubric 7 in step 3 reflect with a mean score of 3.1 and scored the lowest on rubric 6 in step 2 teach and assess with a mean score of 2.8. I'll pass it to Heather to talk about the field test feedback on our next. Thank you.
So we did conduct surveys with our candidates, program coordinators, cooperating teachers, and assessors. And we had online focus groups with candidates, program coordinators, and with the assessors who participated in consensus scoring. And our survey results for selected items are available in Appendix F, and our qualitative data excerpts are available in Appendix G. And so overall, we found from our feedback from candidates, coordinators, and cooperating teachers, as well as assessors, that they found the literacy cycle for CalTPA to be an authentic demonstration of their literacy instruction. Particularly, candidates and coordinators found that the literacy cycle aligned with what they were completing in their coursework and their program. And it allowed them to demonstrate their foundational reading skills and apply the additional themes from the ELA-ELD framework. Candidates and program coordinators appreciated that there was universal design for learning built into the assessment. However, they did express that sometimes candidates found the choices that they had built into the assessment a little bit overwhelming. Candidates were also able to demonstrate instruction in foundational reading skills, and program coordinators did express that they felt that candidates who were in multiple subject placements in the earlier grades maybe had more of an advantage within the assessment as opposed to candidates placed in the upper grades or ed specialist candidates who had particularly younger children, either in TK or kindergarten, or ed specialist candidates who had the adult students might have been at a disadvantage in the assessment. We saw that the revised materials moving from the pilot into the field test allowed for candidates to demonstrate stronger evidence related to standards and learning goals, as well as the use of their students' assets and interests in their planning. And that overall, they found the materials, so the rubrics, the essential questions, the constructs, the levels of performance, they all found it to be very clear. And there was a strong request for sample submissions and exemplars going forward into operational use. Going into our next steps, we're looking forward to clarifying instructions for the use of summative assessment and actionable feedback for focus students, and revising our follow-up activity to have a stronger focus on the ELA literacy and ELD standards and learning goals. We're also going to continue to focus on leveraging student assets and interests in the commentary prompts where candidates explain what they're doing in the videos of their practice and why. And then focusing on reviewing all rubrics to make sure that there is a very clear precision between the level 2 constructs and level 3 constructs. All the glossary terms will be updated. We had some specific requests from assessors, candidates, coordinators, for certain terms so that we all have that common language and what's being used in the assessment. And then we are working on a program and faculty guide, especially around the areas for clinical practice, to make sure that it is has some guidance on what will set candidates up for success, as well as adding more examples to the assessment guide to address the needs for PK3 candidates, early childhood special education, and extensive support needs, especially around reading skills. And of course, all rubrics will be reviewed and revised to align with all these changes, and will continue to support all participants as we work toward that operational first year. I'll go ahead and turn it back to Juliet.
Thank you so much. I will now turn it over to Lori Kroger for a discussion of the EdTPA.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm joining virtually today, so nice to see you all from afar. I'll start with an overview of the EdTPA field test. You can see the participating EPPs. We had 4 EPPs. We began with communication to all programs that use EdTPA in the state. A number of other programs, I think there's 11 in total, had applied, but for a variety of reasons, were not yet ready to participate in the field test at the time that it began. So you can see the 4 programs there. We had multiple subject and the ed specialist as well. For ed specialist, it was only programs with mild, moderate support needs and extensive support needs. EdTPA has not developed the remaining 3 ed specialist fields. So for a total of 242 participants, EPPs, as part of the participation, EPPs initially began with an interest survey. Their application was reviewed to ensure that they met all the requirements, and then invitations were extended to those. The field test opened in January 27th, and our team held weekly meetings with the participating EPPs. So each EPP had identified a primary contact person, and so that person met with our team each week to answer questions and to bring updated information to them as needed. The first submission window closed on April 7th, and those scores were reported on May 15th. During the scoring process, scorers worked closely to calibrate, so they were also provided with marker papers. They were calibrated on the scoring, and then they were double scoring, portfolios were double scored. The retake submission closed on 6/18, and scores will be reported today. So that retake submission window was there for candidates who needed that opportunity to resubmit. And Juliet, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the field test results of the multiple subject candidates, 100 of them passed, 4 did not pass. 21 received condition codes, and I'm going to talk about those condition codes in just a moment. I know that sounds high, and we'll talk about why that happened. The mean score was a 52.33 for multiple subject. Education specialist candidates, there were 92 who passed, 13 not passed, and then 12 who were issued condition codes, and that mean score was 40.83. Overall, most candidates did pass on their first attempt, 98% multiple subject and 88% for ed specialist. The highest scoring rubrics in the multiple subject was rubric 12, providing feedback to guide further learning. The mean, it's a 5-point scale, so the mean on that was 3.45. Ed specialist highest scoring rubric was rubric 4, supporting the use of communication skills. The lowest scoring rubrics you can see for multiple subject was rubric 5, planning assessments, at a 2.69, and ed specialist rubric 11, analyzing performance, and that mean score was a 2.35. I do want to talk about those condition codes for just a minute. What we found was that the majority of those condition codes were not anything other than the candidate using the wrong materials to submit. And so we really thought about how this happened. They had access to all the materials when they registered for the field test. And so we really worked hard to problem solve and think through why or how they accessed other materials. And what we believe happened is that in an effort to get started on their Ed TPA, those multiple subject candidates, they used that 4-task handbook. And the literacy part of the handbook is just tasks 1 through 3. The 4th task is mathematics, and it did not change at all. And so what programs had done in order to help their candidates was give them access to that, that multiple subject handbook with the task 4. Candidates then, instead of only using that handbook to complete task 4, they went ahead and used that handbook to complete tasks 1 through 3 as well. That led them to using incorrect materials. So those candidates who needed to resubmit, whether they failed, they did not achieve the cut score, or they had used the wrong materials and got those condition codes, they were given vouchers to redo their work, to resubmit their work. It may seem kind of like, one of the questions maybe, why can't the materials be scored if they used the older materials, or why can't the submission be scored if they use the older materials? And quite simply, it didn't include the items and the questions, the prompts, the directions that candidates needed to answer in order to meet that requirement of the literacy, Senate Bill 480, and all of the work that was involved with that. So we worked hard with programs to help them understand what happened, and that seems to be where that hiccup came into play. Juliet, if you can go to the next slide. The feedback, we did also conduct surveys with candidates, with faculty and supporting staff, and with mentor teachers. And in addition to the surveys, we also did focus groups with the candidates and the faculty and staff. The multiple subject candidates said that the experience was both challenging and rewarding, and that Ed TPA allowed them to demonstrate their literacy instructional practice in an authentic way, and that the tasks aligned with learning within their literacy courses. Faculty and supporting staff let us know that the literacy version was an improvement. They appreciated the alignment of the rubrics to TPE 7, and the streamlined handbooks were noted, or were appreciated, but noted as still being wordy and somewhat redundant. So that's something I'll talk about in just a minute, is something we're taking a look at. Mentor teachers said that Ed TPA allowed for authentic demonstration of literacy knowledge, skills, and abilities, but they did request additional training, exemplars, and walkthroughs of rubrics and expectations. And then our next steps, planned revisions. We have already begun the work to update the documentation, the handbooks, and the other resources for candidates to enhance clarity and to strengthen the alignment with learning objectives. We've revised directions to provide more clarity on specific areas. One of those in particular is the use of the multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, in the education specialist handbook. We had candidates say, I do this all the time, so I didn't think I needed to be really specific about this. We had a couple candidates who said that. So we're working to make that more clear. A formal standard setting will be conducted in spring 2026, and that will involve establishing performance benchmarks and cut scores. Support for multiple subject rubric 5. That was that low scoring rubric, if you recall, for that handbook. What we'll do is provide additional commentary question asking about the assessment supports for students with specific learning needs. That seems to be the part of that question in particular that was causing candidates to score low. They weren't providing that specific information. And then that low scoring rubric for ed specialists, that was rubric 11. We'll provide additional instruction to clarify around the expectations around their assessment analysis.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you.
All right, as I said, I am presenting on behalf of Susie, though, as many of you know, I am very familiar with FAST and with its literacy performance assessment. So just as a reminder, FAST consists of two parts: the site visitation project, or SVP, typically completed in a candidate's first semester of clinical practice, and the teaching sample project, typically completed in a candidate's second semester of clinical practice. The FAST team chose to revise the SVP to include the literacy components because multiple subject and education specialist candidates take that SVP when enrolled in their second semester of literacy courses. So there you can see on the screen the number of candidates who participated. For multiple subject, there were 38 multiple subject candidates who were enrolled in their phase 1 of clinical practice, 8 candidates who were enrolled in a dual multiple subject education specialist credential program who were enrolled in their general education phase of clinical practice, and then 6 multiple subjects candidates who were actually enrolled in phase 2 because they had been involved in the pilot in the fall and they did not pass. In terms of education specialists, there were 6 education specialist candidates enrolled in phase 1 of their clinical practice, and so they also participated in the field test. As far as candidate support goes, Susie did hold 2 seminars for candidates spaced at different points in the semester to provide targeted support for where they were with their site visitation projects. And then, as you may recall, FAST is locally scored. And so in terms of scoring these field tests, there were 31 multiple subject and education specialist faculty and coaches who participated in the scoring. All participated in a 2-part calibration session. Little delay for when I press and when it shows up. But as far as the field test results go, you can see for multiple subject, 52 candidates submitted their assessments. 88% of those passed on their first attempt. 2 additional passed on a second attempt, and 4 have not yet passed. For education specialists, mild to moderate, 1 submitted, 1 passed. For education specialist, extensive support, 6 submitted, 4 passed on the first attempt, 1 passed on the second attempt, and 1 still was not passed. As far as the average rubric scores go, there are 3 rubrics for the site visitation project. FAST does utilize a 4-point rubric. Candidates have to score a 2 to pass. And so you can see the scores there for the literacy foundations, the meaning making, and then its instructional decision making and culturally sustained pedagogy. So FAST did also solicit feedback from candidates, assessors, and mentor teachers through targeted surveys. The full results of those surveys are available in appendices O, P, and Q of the agenda item. So of the candidates who responded, there were 15 total. 13 agreed or somewhat agreed that they felt prepared to complete the SVP, while all 15 agreed or somewhat agreed that they had the necessary knowledge to instruct literacy, foundational, and meaning-making skills. Of the 19 assessors who responded, 17 felt prepared or somewhat prepared to support their candidates with the SVP tasks. So remember, those coaches are both supporting the candidates and then they're also scoring. 16 felt prepared or very prepared to score the foundational skills, 18 to score the meaning-making section. And then with 21 mentor teachers responded to the survey, 14 felt prepared or somewhat prepared to support the candidates with those tasks. 17 indicated they had the necessary knowledge and skills to support those candidates. In terms of next steps for FAST as a result of the field test, there are some planned revisions for the site visitation projects. Those include revising the directions and templates to provide greater specificity so that candidates or to candidates in how to complete the instructional decision-making sections. They're also revising task instructions and rubrics to ensure greater alignment between the two. And then finally, and this came out of conversations among the assessors, they're adding another rubric descriptor to allow assessors to score for the degree to which the implemented literacy development activities are appropriate for the identified focal skills. I'll go into more detail on that if you have questions. But in terms of programmatic changes, results of the field test indicated the need for more explicit instruction in both foundational skills and meaning making. And so these results are being shared with faculty so that they can make adjustments to their syllabi. Additionally, to better inform mentor teachers about the expectations for the revised site visitation project, the existing single subject site visitation project and the teaching sample project, so all elements of FAST, Susie plans to implement a monthly newsletter for mentor teachers that includes information about the assessments and what candidates should be working on at that point in time. And then finally, like with the other models, a standard setting for the revised site visitation project is planned for spring 2026. So with that, we now would like to move on to the recommendations. And we do have these organized by assessment. I'm just going to go through these slides just to make sure everybody is clear. For CalTPA, the recommendation is that commissioners adopt the CalTPA literacy cycle for PK3 early childhood education specialist instruction, multiple subjects, education specialists, mild to moderate support needs, extensive support needs, early childhood special education, deaf, hard of hearing, and visual impairments for operational use in 2025-2026. Also, we recommend that the commission approve the year 1 passing standards and secondary passing standard. That passing standard set at 16, 2 points per rubric with no side conditions, and a secondary passing standard of 14, again with no side conditions. So those are the recommendations for CalTPA. For EdTPA, the recommendations are that the commission adopt the EdTPA multiple subject literacy with math and education specialist literacy for operational use in the 2025-2026 academic year, and that the commission approve year 1 passing standards and secondary passing standards. For multiple subject, the recommended passing standard is 47 with a secondary passing standard of 44. And for education specialists, our recommended passing standard is 35 with a secondary passing standard of 34. Finally, for FAST, the recommendation is that the commission adopt FAST revised site visitation project for multiple subject and education specialist mild to moderate support needs and extensive support needs for operational use in 2025-2026, and approve a year 1 passing standard of level 2 on each rubric, which was the passing standard that was used in the pilot and field tests and is the passing standard that is used across all the FAST assessments. So with that, are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Francois.
First of all, thank you for your hard work on this one as well. There's some pretty meaty items this week. This is just a clarification question. In the in your report for the EdTPA, you noted that one of the lowest rubric, one of the rubrics that candidates scored the lowest on multiple subject candidates was on planning assessments. And I was just later in the presentation, you said specific to students with learning need. And I'm just wondering if the planning assessment section was difficult. Was that a trend across various student populations? Yes, for sure. I'm asking.
Juliet, do you want me to take that?
Okay. One more comment. I'm only asking the question because historically with the performance assessment for multiple subject candidates, the assessment section has always been challenging. And so this makes, if it's a trending across student populations, it would be informative to the field around what kind of professional learning opportunities we need to be providing our candidates, because this challenge has been 2 decades in the making.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's a good question. And yes, this was a trend that we saw across all student populations.
We must do something here.
This is one of the revisions that is being made to provide more clarity and more direction to candidates so that they not only understand more about what specific information is being required or being asked of them to provide, but also how they can do that. And then within the handbook, you may recall from a previous meeting, we had embedded some of the content from other resources directly into the handbook. And one of those other resources is what we call the Understanding Rubric Level Progressions. What it does is give some examples of the score points for each rubric. And so what we've done is take this opportunity also to really explain to candidates what a level 3, and that's proficient performance, and then what above proficient and below proficient looks like for each rubric, but specifically really creating some new examples for this rubric 5 in particular.
I think for those of us that offer educator preparation programs and support candidates as they go through, because this has been kind of a pervasive issue across time, it does call us to pause a little bit to say, when we embed these things in our program, what kind of special attention needs to be paid to development, understanding assessments, analyzing student work, and then providing feedback, effective feedback. Because again, even before, in the early days of PACT, we're seeing a similar trend. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
Yeah, you're
it's
very
not just about the guideline.
So I have 2 questions, and thanks. This was an extremely comprehensive review, really helpful. First question to do with the EdTPA, really asking for more clarification there. So if an EPP administers an EdTPA, but we don't currently have an EdTPA for DHH, BI, etc., what do?
They take the CalTPA.
You have to take the CalTPA.
That's right.
Yeah. Correct. How soon will those EdTPAs be developed? I mean, so the campus might be administered. Different assessments. Okay, so that is. My second question is really across all of the TPAs, and that has to do with, I think, a concern that has come up and will continue to come up on the, with the revisions to the TPA, and that's the involvement of mentor teachers. And how do we bring them on board? And I saw all 3 of you, 3 of the talked about bringing mentor teachers on. So I'm curious, what lessons have we learned in terms of what role did the mentor teachers play? Were they the double scorers? Were they the sole scorers? How do we bring them on board?
I think that's a great question, and it did come up within the RDI TPA work group, but it's so tricky, right? Because we already ask so much of mentor teachers, and many institutions don't compensate our mentor teachers at all. Or if they do, it's very minimal amount. And so, yeah, we can invite them in, but I think it's what can we do to educate them more? And you're absolutely right. We saw a call for that in all of that feedback. I think Susie's idea with FAST to develop this monthly newsletter for mentor teachers so that they know what to expect, what their candidates should be working on at that point. I don't know if you all have had thoughts about.
Yeah,
For CalTPA, we started this with the pilot and continued it with the field test by doing a webinar specifically targeted for the cooperating teachers. And we held it at a time that we felt would be conducive to their schedules, knowing that they are committed during the professional day. So we did it in the evening and we recorded it because we also know that they are very busy. And so that way they could go watch it at a time that was convenient for them as well. And then had a folder of resources they could access in a Google folder as well. So we did that last year and this year. It was well received. They appreciated the information. So we'd like to continue that and maybe build on it going into next year. But we again know that it's really difficult to expect more of them than they're already doing. So we're trying to balance that as well. So we tried to make it accessible and not super difficult for them.
Commissioner Brown?
I would just like to underscore, if it's worth doing well, it's going to take time, money, and people. I know I repeat that, that's Kate with her TMP, but the idea that you want to have these candidates have a mentor teacher, and then a California Early Childhood Mentor Teacher Program. Those mentor teachers meet monthly, and they talk over the student that the student teachers that are doing their clinical practice, and they get a stipend for that. And I know it's a small thing, but it matters. And so the idea that you have all these mentor teachers and you're trying to provide them, I just read again I just read the mentor teachers' responses because that interests me. And I really appreciate what you're trying to do to make it so it's doable. And I still think that we all need to recognize that if you want to do something well, you need to find the people that'll do it and give them. So when we can't do that, we can't have unrealistic expectations. And unfortunately, what that means is then those student teachers, as they're doing their clinical practice and needing to do these performance assessments, won't do as well until they can have program support that is supported. Funny thing to say, but that's what I meant.
Other commissioners, Commissioner Clyde.
Just wanted to say, as a classroom teacher, I really appreciate, you were talking about the flexibility of attending a seminar and that it's recorded and that it's all these different flexibilities, because I think, and I have had teachers in my classroom that I'm coaching or mentoring. The time is, and the money, money is always appreciated, but honestly, it's the time. And so whatever flexibilities with time can be granted, that I think that, and it's, I've wondered about this for many years, is how do we fix that? Because if a teacher is an employee of a district, they're not an employee of the university or the program. How do we somehow bridge that? And because that's kind of that relationship is so important. And I don't know how we figure out, and it's true of induction as well. Like, how do we figure out ways to carve out the time to allow that to happen? So I appreciate any flexibilities as it sounds like you're trying to look at. Thank you.
Other commissioners. This is an action item. Commissioner,
I do want to add just one thing. It is overburdening of the mentor teachers. Because a lot of times they are overburdened with time. I was a mentor teacher for many years. But even though mentor teachers are overburdened, they are committed to their mentees. And they are still not within the loop. I noticed in the comments as well that a lot of the information they get is from their mentees. And that information is not consistent. So there needs to be a way that they're getting the information directly from the institutions so that it's consistent. Because they're unable to effectively mentor their mentees if they're not getting that information accurately. So The monthly newsletter is great. But there has to be a way for them to be able to access that information in a more timely fashion, or know where to go, find that information, not just once a month. They have to have a portal or somewhere where they can go and find that information. It's very important for them to be able to access. And with that, I'd like to move that we make a motion that we approve.
We have, I believe, 3 different motions, so we'll go ahead and read them if that's okay.
Can I approve all 3?
We would like to
Let's read them.
move all 3 on the table. I believe we have to do them separately. Is that correct?
I don't know that we do.
Have to, but
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we have a motion to approve all 3 motions, the staff recommendations that were up there. Do I have a second? I can read them. to you. Would you mind putting them up there as well?
Absolutely.
So the first one is a motion that the commission adopt a CalTPA literacy cycle for multiple subject PK3 early childhood education and education specialist, MMSN, ESN, ECSE, DHH, and VI with a recommended passing standard of 16, secondary passing standard of 14, with no site conditions for either. That's the first one. The second one is to adopt the EdTPA multiple subject literacy with mathematics with a passing standard of 47 and a secondary passing standard of 44, education specialist literacy, MMSN and ESN assessments with the recommended passing standard of 35 and secondary passing standard of 34. And lastly, it's to adopt the FAST 3.0 site visitation project for multiple subject and education specialists, MMSN and ESN for operational administration beginning in the 2025-26 academic year with the recommended passing standard of a level 2 on each rubric. So I do the first. Yes.
Just a point of clarification on the EdTPA. I heard the word mathematics. Is that part of the motion, Juliet?
Yes.
Yes.
The assessment. I think their assessment form has combined the LPA with mathematics.
For clarification, I know.
Go ahead.
So going back, just if we look here at the ed specialist candidates taking the EdTPA, the candidates need to take a literacy and a mathematics cycle. But there is only a literacy cycle for the EdTPA. Am I reading this correctly?
Yeah, EdTPA just has one cycle. That's how the EdTPA is designed.
So would an ed specialist candidate only take the literacy cycle, or do they need to take the mathematics cycle too?
Lori, do you want to answer that? It's mathematics is embedded within that.
Juliet, I'm sorry, can you repeat both what you said and the question?
So the education specialist literacy, that embeds mathematics as well, correct?
It's literacy. If a candidate is also teaching mathematics, they can incorporate that in there, yes. But it is literacy. The primary focus is literacy.
Okay, so I guess my question is a requirement for a candidate who's taking an EdTPA and working on an ed specialist credential. What will they, starting fall 2025, what will they be required to take?
If approved, they would take the education specialist literacy EdTPA, the one that was field tested. So it's primarily literacy. If they are teaching mathematics as part of what they're working on with that student, for EdTPA, they select one student that they kind of highlight in their EdTPA. If they are working with that student on their mathematics, they would incorporate that they could incorporate that as well.
And that's their requirement. And once they're done with that, they're done. They don't have to take another math.
That's correct. That's correct.
I believe that our standards for performance assessments, these are the design standards for performance assessments for multiple subject and special education and the pre-K3 require that candidates demonstrate on a performance assessment their ability to teach literacy and their ability to teach math. So for CalTPA, we have those in 2 different cycles. For EdTPA, both of those things are expected to be completed within the single larger cycle. I believe, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the way the literacy component is set up, 3/4 of it roughly is focused on literacy and 1/4 on math or something like that. But in the course of completing an EdTPA toward the end of their year-long program, they will have demonstrated ability to teach in both of those content areas consistent with our standards.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And with FAST, just to add, that's the math is addressed in the teaching sample project.
Any further discussion? I do have a first. Do I have a second? Very good, Ms. Shires. So I have a second. The recording secretary, please call for the vote. Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Gerald Cotton.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Go La Torre.
Aye.
Peter Bruno Shire. Aye. Bonnie Platt. Aye. Gomez.
Aye.
Martinez.
Was that me? Aye, that was.
Wang Yuzo. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for this discussion. And Dr. Watliner, Dr. Luna Lopez, Ms. Kennedy, and Ms. Kruger, thank you for your work on this. We look forward to hearing more as we move forward. At this point in time, I know people may get a little bit hangry right now. I have one more item. So if it's okay with everyone, we can go ahead and take lunch. We'll see everybody at, giving you extra minutes at 1:30. So we should get going at 1:30, okay? We will see you at 1:30. Thank you all.
Close our cameras.
Please. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And teaching performance assessments. This item is being presented by Julie Holmes and Juliet Watliner. This is an action item. Ms. Holmes, will you please begin?
Thank you so much, commissioners, for having us back. I promise this is the last performance assessment item of the day. We thank patience in letting us present all these items as we move into the new. So my colleague Juliet is getting us queued up for a PowerPoint. We have some visuals and things to share. Okay. Well, thank you again and good afternoon. Hope you had a great lunch. My name is Julie Holmes. I'm one of the consultants on the performance assessment team. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Juliet Wellleitner, who is a special consultant with the Office of Policy and Continuous Improvement. And again, we thank you for this opportunity to present item E. This is proposed passing score standards for the new and revised California teaching performance assessments. This agenda item presents the recommended minimum passing standards for these new and revised items for 25-26 for cycles 1 and 2 for single subject and world language, and as well as the multiple subjects, education specialist, mild, moderate, and education specialist, extensive support needs. So let's really talk about what we are going to be looking at today. I will first kind of start us out and ground us in what we are looking at exactly, what is operational, and then what is the proposal towards the end. So, of course, in response to Senate Bill 488, as well as Senate Bill 1263, CTC staff began a comprehensive redevelopment effort, which included creating the new math performance assessment for multiple subjects and education specialists, mild, moderate, and extensive support needs that paralleled the existing literacy performance assessment work that was being done. So we have worked to create those new math cycles and also along that same time, revise the existing cycle 1 and 2 of single subject and world languages so that it aligns with all of the changes to the new math and literacy cycles for the CalTPA. So we will kind of go into and ground us in what we're looking at. This next slide is a graphic of all of the, I don't know about you, but I certainly need a visual to kind of understand the scope of what we're looking at. So if you look at the screen, CalTPA has 9 unique assessments. The first 2 in green are single subject and world language. And each of those has 2 cycles, cycle 1 and cycle 2. The remaining 7 assessments represent those that use the math and the literacy cycle. Now, if you look at the last 4 that are sort of hanging outside the box, those are the brand new assessments that will be operational this coming school year. That is the DHH, Ed Specialist DHH, the early childhood specification, the visual impairments, as well as PK3. So those represent the new assessments. And you've already taken action on those items today through the math cycle, as well as the literacy performance assessment. What we're looking at today is what is in the yellow box. So what is in the yellow box? Those are the current operational CalTPA assessments that have been revised to align with the new math and literacy cycles. And those revisions have been so extensive that we need to decide on a proposed passing standard. So just to ground you in what we're looking at today, single subject and world language cycle 1 and 2, multiple subjects math cycle, because you've already taken action on the literacy, the Ed Specialist mild moderate support needs, just looking at the new math cycle, and the Ed Specialist extensive support needs. So I hope that is helpful as we kind of ground us in what we are looking at moving forward. I apologize for the history lesson, but it will help as we look forward. So historically, the use of preliminary and secondary passing standards. Back in 2019, the preliminary passing standard was established for the revised CalTPA for multiple subject, single subject, and world language. It aligned with field test results, and it was informed by data from the first year of operation. Then in December of 2023, the commission approved the secondary passing standard, or the negative 1 SEM standard error of measurement. And under this policy, candidates who score within 1 standard error of measurement below the passing standard may still be eligible for a preliminary credential. Of course, they must demonstrate competency across all TPEs, as well as meet the other credential requirements. Now, before we get to the next slide, current operational CalTPA passing standards. What was in that yellow box earlier? The current passing standards for the operational assessments, the secondary passing standard applies to all CalTPA assessments except for extensive support needs. And they all include a side condition. And what that means, just so that we're all using the same terms, a side condition is that candidates may receive no more than 1 rubric score of a 1. So if a candidate receives 2 or more 1s, they do not pass the assessment. And that applies regardless of their total score. So even if they receive a 30, but they have more than 1 score of a 1, they would not pass. They would have to revise that assessment. So that is what we're referring to when we say a side condition. And of course, candidates with multiple rubric 1s, they can revise and resubmit. Just to. So currently, what are we looking at? Just so we all are grounded in what we're looking at before we make any proposed changes. So current operational CalTPA passing standards are the following. In table 1, this is our Gen Ed multiple subject cycle 1. We're this year on version 7. The approved passing standard is a 19 with the side condition that they cannot have more than 1 score of a 1. And you'll notice the little asterisk next to that 19. The secondary passing standard is applicable, and that's in the next column. They could get a 16. is the secondary passing standard minimum. That multiple subject cycle 1, that is across 8 rubrics, a total of 40 possible points. For single subject and world language in cycle 1, then again, we're on version 7. It's the same passing standard applicable, 19 with the side condition of no more than 1-1, secondary passing of 16. And then cycle 2 is a little bit different because cycle 2 is 9 rubrics out of a total of 45 points. So the passing standard is 21 with the side condition, and the secondary passing that's applicable is a score of 18. And the table at the bottom represents the current operational ed specialist CalTPA for mild, moderate, and extensive support needs cycle 1. So they are currently on version 3 this year. The approved passing standard is a 17 with a max score of 101 and a secondary passing of 15. Again, 8 rubrics out of 40 points. Extensive support needs is very similar. They have the score of a 15 and a secondary passing standard of 12. The side condition does not apply to the extensive support needs. And again, that's 8 rubrics, 40 total points. So again, varying numbers of rubrics, varying numbers of total points. Of course, different passing standards. But now we have revised and redeveloped these assessments here to align with the math cycle and what we learned in the math cycle field test, as well as what we learned in the LPA field test. So they have been redeveloped. I'll pass it to you, Julianne.
Just a quick point of clarification.
Oh, yes.
So that my understanding is right. So if I were to get a score of 1 on 2 rubrics, but my score was with the secondary passing standard, can I still pass? No. I'm only allowed 1, regardless of whatever.
That side condition would prevent you from utilizing that secondary passing standard under the current operational standards. Yes. Great question.
So Julie just shared with you the updates on the new and revised versions of the CalTPA, the historical use of the preliminary passing standards in the first operational year, and the passing standards for the current versions of the assessments. And so I now want to share with you the passing standards for the first operational year of the new and revised versions. These are going to look very similar to what you saw in the MPA item and the LPA item earlier. And part of that is that, as Julie shared, all of the assessments have been revised to apply the learning from those field tests for the MPA and the LPA. So staff are recommending a passing score of 16 total points for all of the assessments out of a total of 40. And this score of 16 equates to an average of a rubric score of 2 on a 5-point scale on each of the assessment's 8 rubrics. We are also recommending that there be no side conditions, which would mean that theoretically a candidate could earn a 1 on multiple rubrics if they scored high enough on other rubrics. Because Ed Code 44320.2 requires a secondary passing standard, we also propose that the secondary passing standard for all versions be set at 14 for this first year of operation. Our rationale for these proposed standards are that they support a developmental standard during this early phase of implementation as programs and candidates are adjusting to these new versions of the assessments. Additionally, as I highlighted above, these approaches do enable compensatory scoring where higher rubric scores can offset weaker areas. And finally, we believe that the proposed scores reflect the principles of fairness, growth, and beginning teacher potential. And again, both sets of standards would be temporary for this first year. Then this slide, sorry, just provides a graphic that shows you, each assessment, it's version 1, that proposed passing standard of 16, the proposed secondary passing standard of 14, and the fact that there are 8 rubrics total. That. And if the commission does adopt the recommended passing standards and secondary passing standards, the next steps then would be to conduct standard settings for each assessment in spring 2026.
That process would begin with the collection of data from each operational assessment in fall 2025 and winter 2026. We would then bring together panels of experts in spring 2026. The information that was gathered from those fall and winter assessment periods to inform the standard settings. And the plan would then be to bring the results of those standard settings to you next June for recommended adoption. That shortest performance assessment item of the day. Staff or recommending these the following actions. That the commission adopt a minimum passing standard of 16 points across the 8 rubrics with no side conditions. Or multiple subject math cycle, single subject cycles 1 and 2, world language cycles 1 and 2, education specialists, mild to moderate support needs and extensive support needs, math cycles of those assessments, and then adopt a secondary passing standard of 14 points across the 8 rubrics with no side conditions for all assessments. So thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you. I'll open up for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make a comment, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? Thank you. Public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Erickson?
Thank you again for all of your work. And as I was mentioning to some of the commissioners at lunch, this has been such an iterative process, and it's so nice to see all the feedback and consultation that's gone into this. And I'm so thankful we have an assistant director of credentialing and compliance and an associate dean of teacher education that's trying to track all these. When we had our meeting with the ICCU group, one of the deans mentioned the level of complexity in terms of tracking all of this, which students took what standards in which time frame, what are they supposed to be held to for passing standards. Our assistant director of credentialing and compliance even has a user group for the faith-based credential analysts that meet on a regular basis, and there's still misunderstanding and communication. So we were wondering if there might be a strong, clear, maybe one, I don't think you can get it on 1 page, maybe 2-page cheat sheet to help the field that's very clear about that information for the candidates, for the programs, and for the districts, just so that we make sure that we're doing our due diligence with our candidates. But I appreciate so much having those multiple pathways for our candidates who aren't test takers or have anxiety, and we're able to verify that they'll be a great educator through the team. So thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
Thank you again for all the robust work. We appreciate all of the effort and time that has been put into all of this work here. I've got a couple of questions from the field. We've already asked one of them, so that's great. From the AICCU perspective, or from the college perspective and the preparation institution perspective, when these changes are happening, are we doing any like kind of webinar kind of things for our folks who have to then change course syllabus, change whole programs to just kind of adopt to these kinds of changes, or are we just kind of rolling it out? It's just there.
I could, similar to when we were talking about the math cycle, we recognize that this is a full transition year for programs candidates, with moving from what was current operational version 7 and version 3 assessments to version 1. We're hitting the full reset button on these assessments. So we did spring transition webinars for each of the credential areas. They were really well attended, and we recorded them, and then we put them on PSD News. So that's out there for programs to watch the recording, and they can still access the, you know, the Google resource folder. So that was one piece of the puzzle. We updated our listserv so that programs can subscribe and get regular updates from us, the PA team. And then in August, we have a full lineup of these new material webinars that we're launching. We will also record and put them on PSD News for programs. And yeah, so just getting that word out there. We did some crosswalks on like comparing the old to the new, because for programs to go like, just show me what's changed so I can make that change. So we kind of highlighted those big changes as well, but still there's more work to be done. I mean, yes, we're going to have to continue to do outreach and work with programs to get the word out. And our partners that have been part of the math cycle and the literacy cycle field test have been great at also sharing with their colleagues. Like, don't be scared. These new assessments, you know, are better in this way and that way. And so in sharing those words to their colleagues are really helpful as well.
The next question I have, and thank you for that, I appreciate it. And I'm not sure if this is a question for you all or a question for Pearson, but as far as the changes to for example, the video tool, you know, because I help CalTPA and CalTPA candidates get through the process, you know, as a mentor at my site. And the difficulty when the video tool changes in March and the guide doesn't reflect that, there's no video tutorial, there's no blah, blah, blah to help assist. And then you go from posting 1 or 2 videos to posting 4 videos. And then you got annotations of 100 words here at total, and now it's 100 words for 4 different videos. It's like, it's a lot to take in. And then program-wise, the preparation institutions don't have all of the information, because I realized that we voted for that here and that change came suddenly. But the supporting documentation, will that be available too, or is it too soon for that prior to the July 1st launch date?
So we have, we are updating our program guides. Those go to faculty programs that utilize the CalTPA. And that's like the teacher's edition, right? It's 150 pages. It's everything you could want. You Control F and search for anything, any question you might possibly have. So that's one tool. Also, you might love this, in all of these new 9 assessments, we are not using the annotation tool, the video annotation. It is changing. First, in the math cycle, candidates will have a choice between submitting 1 to 3 clips up to 15 minutes. So they have a choice point there. If they can showcase everything in 1 or 2 clips, great. If they want to do 3 clips, it's their choice. And then they write a commentary, or they can provide a written or verbal commentary or American Sign Language. So they have a choice point there. And with the literacy, it's a choice of 1 to 4 video clips, again, up to 20 minutes. So again, another choice point. They don't have to use the annotation tool, so it doesn't limit their word count. And then in the commentary that they can provide, either written or verbally, they can just, you know, hit the record button and talk to the camera and record their commentary if they want to explain what we're seeing in the video clip. So we did test these things out quite extensively in the math and the literacy field test. And actually, we had really great results with that. So that's something that we're, you know, implementing across the board with these current assessments that we're here today to kind of look at the passing standard.
And then that brings up about 80 more questions, but I promise I'll only ask 2. The first question, so obviously there's going to be a word limit and a videos and a word count commentary portion of the assessment. Whereas
no. Well, they have up to a certain number of pages.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I can
yeah,
it just my 15 minutes.
Right.
Video.
With the old annotation tool, there was a very specific word count, but I think they have up to 7. I'd have to look.
6 or 7, depending on.
Depends on the cycle, and that's written, 7 pages. So if they're submitting 2 clips and they're writing 7 pages if they choose to,
Minutes on the.
yeah, I'd have to pull, 10 minutes if they want to do just a verbal response. If that's their preferred communication method, great. Then turn on the camera, talk to the camera, and we'll watch that, and that could be your commentary. So yeah, there are some limits there, yeah.
Appreciate all of those responses. Here's one last question, I promise, and then I'll put the rest of my questions in writing because I don't want to belabor this. The final question I have is about the templates themselves, and the templates when they're revised, because I know they're going to be revised for this, but when they're revised, they're not publicly available that I can find anyway. They're always hidden unless you pay for them. It does not help our preparation institutions by having them behind a gated wall that you have to pay for to get them. And so in a program, my program is not adequately able to prepare me for this because it's like a bait and switch. If I don't get it done by the July deadline, there are updates. So then I have to start all over again, or I have to go and look at 8 new rubrics potentially, and new forms, and then the video tool changes. So it's like a moving target every year. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm not necessarily enrolled in it, but I'm helping people through it. And then as a commissioner, I look like I've got egg on my face when I go, oh, I don't know why this is like this every year. So I'm here asking.
Yeah.
Will the forms, the templates, be available outside of the wall, or will it still be behind the wall of payment? Because I think that will help every preparation institution get a leg up so that we can start doing the thing that we talk about around this table, preparing people to get through this process in the credential program as opposed to them going in on their own, because there's no way with the moving target to get people through the program.
Yeah, and you're right. There are annual changes this year, especially because we're doing this complete reset. Twice a year, the PA team meets with program coordinators. The program coordinator is designated in the ADS system. So whoever is that program coordinator is invited to the program coordinator meeting, and we share out those annual updates, and we share out what's new, what's different, how to get your resources. And there is a link that's shared with them and a password where they can go to a faculty resource page and click on the guide and enter the password and have access to the guide and the templates, as well as the program guide. So they kind of have a key that not everyone else has. And it is their role, and we encourage them to share this out, share this with their faculty, anyone supporting with CalTPA. Don't share it with candidates. This is for you internally. But that's something that is whoever might be the program coordinator.
So then it brings up 2 more questions, and I apologize, I promised no more, but because of what you said, so is there a program coordinator at every institution, or is it like there's one for the AICUs?
Oh, no, every institution has to designate a person. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
A final question. You said that the templates are shared with these coordinators, and the coordinators are not allowed to share it with candidates. What is the rationale for that? Because again, that is the problem that we're having in the state of California with our preparation institutions not having the tools to prepare our students. And when I say not having the tools, they have access to it, but they can't share it with them and say, here's a template, fill this out, and let's work on this, and let's get this ready to be submitted for the July deadline before the moving target moves again.
Right. I mean, we do hear from programs that they do share the template. They might take it and put it in a Google Doc form so that there's a more collaborative feedback method. I know of two programs I come to mind that do it that way. But then when candidates do get ready to submit their work, they do have to register on the evaluation systems website, pay and download they download their guide and their template. Fill out their templates, save them, name them appropriately so that they can upload them when it's time to submit. But yeah, there are programs that, that do certainly share those out. During coursework, it's completely, that'd be fine. If they wanted, send it as a draft, like just a practice, that's okay too. Yeah, we can't prevent that.
And are those available, like you said, like the cycle's about to change for all of CalTPA, CalTPA, all of it's about to change again. I saw on the website, there's a message there. Are they gonna have access to those now? Because I think people, I might be wrong, my college colleagues around the table, you all are making your course syllabi now, right? Because you all don't get summers off like we don't get summers off, right? So just making sure, like, will those be available to them so that they can get the ball rolling for the fall? I mean, I know it's a transition year and I'm sorry to keep putting you on the spot with all the questions, but this has been a sore subject here around this table for a while. Not that, this process isn't a good process for most people who are involved in the process, but some of the bugs we're trying to work out are some of these limitations. And it sounded like you said to me, or to all of us, that we ask those program coordinators not to share, and then some do anyway. So then that tells me some people have an advantage, some people don't. And then it also tells me that there should be a way, either we do share or we don't. And we need to stick to that, right? But I really believe that it should be shared. And again, like you said, behind that wall, and I've been there helping people register. I know they have to pay. I know they have to register. I know they have to do all that process to get access to the forms, but if they had access and a draft that somebody could get some eyes on before the process is done, then there's a better, stronger likelihood of passing. Because and because we're not asking our higher ed partners for data, like how many people are passing and then how often are they passing? How many times are they taking the assessments? We're not asking all of this stuff. The candidates are totally at a disadvantage in all of this. We need to advantage them. We need to get them through the system. So I'm wondering if we are, and I don't know if we have the power, the authority of Executive Director Sandy around this table to say we have access to these documents to give to folks who are in classrooms learning to become teachers, or if it's a hit and miss thing like kind of what was presented, where the same program coordinators don't share. You have access, you have the resources, you can do some stuff. And then, but some people are and some people aren't. So I'm done with my questions, but I just don't know. That's a sticking point for me.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. It's, I mean, this has been a little 12 months of sticking points and important that we're taking them up. Looks like Dr. Wallachner team.
Yes. Well, within the CalTPA required forms of support, it does say that coordinators are responsible for sharing the assessment tool with candidates.
So that's
and I will tell you that we are working this has been such a fast-paced spring as we've had these. I mean, the field tests wrapped up in late May. And then we're trying to take all that we learned from that process and implement it across all of those assessments that you saw up there. And so the assessments have to get updated and then the guides have to get updated. And so this team has been working around the clock to get those changes made. And then the materials go to Pearson because they're the administrators. And so that they have to work their magic, right, before we can get those out to the field. And so we're trying to get them out because absolutely, I hear you on that. I know what it was like to put together my syllabi and want to make sure that I had all the information for my candidates. So
programs are going to wish they had it back in March.
Yes, for sure.
That wasn't unless you were piloting or field testing, you don't even have a draft of it yet. So this is a perfect example of flying the plane while it's being constructed. And it's, we're gonna just keep moving in some kind of syncopated way to make sure that programs get what we can give them as quickly as we can. But I'm glad you found that point. In
Just to extend the metaphor, buffer, helping to build and construct the black box. I've said
Lane.
we need that and to keep getting this vital information out to the field. Thank you.
Commissioner De La Torre and Chair Credentialing.
I just, the concern that I have is, I don't understand why the forms do not be public to the candidates. So, and if they're given to the coordinators, and then you're instructing the coordinators to make them public to the candidates, and then some coordinators do it and some don't, then it becomes an equity issue. That would be remedied by just giving it to the candidates direct. Just put it in the instructions. Give it to every candidate. And then it's there. Just put it out there.
Is available for them once they register.
I know, but.
I understand what you're saying.
Just put it out there. I'm saying, I'll give the example, National Board puts it in the component one directions that anyone has access to before they even register. Anyone can see it. There's nothing wrong with them seeing a template. A template is not giving answers away. There's nothing wrong with a template being available. And if two institutions give it, that is already inequitable for all the others who do not. And so make it public. And the problem solved. Put it in the instructions, make it public, and then it's out. And the problem solved. Easy peasy. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be paid for. And once they pay it, it's already there. I mean, I just have an issue with things being inequitable.
Right.
And then that shouldn't be the reason why candidates struggle to be successful. It's hard enough already to become a teacher. Let's not make it harder than it already is. And also, I would like to also make a motion to move this forward, and I move that we do adopt the recommended passing standard and secondary passing standard for the new and revised California teaching performance assessments. Can you make that motion now?
Well, we have a first motion, but I think Chair wanted to.
Well, I'll second your motion, but I wanted to make a friendly amendment if I may. And that is, I really appreciate the comments of our commissioners regarding we've come so far with this work. And earlier you apologized for the multiple tables and like, no, that it's so complicated. But I keep hearing around this table that we need to level the playing field for all of our candidates. So I want to suggest that the comments of Commissioner Davis and the comments of Commissioner De La Torre are suggestions. I don't want to use the word directive because I don't like that word, but strong suggestions to our staff that we provide the information to students, that it's easily available, so that all students are treated in an equitable way. And that as we're rolling out this implementation, you come back to us and you let us know how you've accomplished it. That's my friendly amendment. That was a really long one.
Commissioner Potter.
Just want to make a point, and really, I think just to echo what everyone is saying, and I won't belabor that point, but we've talked about students who pass, candidates who pass, candidates who fail. We've got a whole group in between of non-submittals. And so I think another obligation we have is to demystify the TPA, given that it is still, a very high stakes assessment till we change things. And we need to do whatever we can to make them understand what this is about and that get them to the point where they actually submit. So I think again, transparency.
See it.
Are there any other commissioners, any further discussion? We do have a first and a second. This is an action item. So we have a first and a second. I'm just going to read if that's okay. To adopt a minimum passing standard of 16 points across 8 rubrics, no side conditions for the CalTPA multiple subject math cycle, single subject cycles 1 and 2, World Languages Cycles 1 and 2, and Education Specialist, MMSN and ESN Math Cycles Assessments, effective July 1st, 2025. Additionally, I also had a motion to pass for a secondary passing standard of 14 points across all 8 rubrics with no side conditions for all assessments. I have a first by Commissioner De La Torre, a second by Chair Grenville-Shire. Is there any further discussion?
So I use the word friendly amendment. I don't want to amend the existing motion. I want my comments regarding directions to staff to be just that, to reflect the recommendations that were raised here. Okay, that's what I do.
Will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Brown.
I don't respond with
Martinez.
Aye.
Carol Falcon. Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Marquita Grenville-Shire.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Tamati. Your mic is not on.
Yeah, Hydra, you come in and out, but yes, I always hear part of my name.
Phone use off.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Before we walk away, Executive Director Sandy would like to say something.
I thank you for indulging me. I think we previewed this morning that this particular committee would have only action items on it today and tomorrow, and we're through the first 5 of them. Yes, because tomorrow we've got 2. And the performance assessment work seems to be dominating this agenda for this meeting, which does represent, again, a kind of culmination of development work, redevelopment work, and tomorrow the RDI TPA and its ideas and recommendations to consider for what's happening next in this space. But indulge me. I really, really want to thank and recognize the performance assessment staff that they have put in the work to get every single form of performance assessment updated. All 3 of our performance assessments have now approved literacy performance assessments ready to go under Senate Bill 488. And this has been as intense an effort as our certification effort has been this last year. But this team has really done yeoman's work in getting to this table. And we so appreciate your engagement and how important it is for us to get this right. And I have to tell you, I appreciate working with the staff who is doubling down on how to get it right. And this is just a really good moment, and I don't want to let it go by without saying so. So, yes.
And you also for all my complaints and comments. Add that I do appreciate all this work. It is monumental, and thank you. I don't mean to sound like, but I don't appreciate it. I do, I really do. Thank you.
We appreciate talking to folks who care about it as much as you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Having no additional items today, I recess the Educator Preparation Committee until tomorrow.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardenas. I will now recess the general session. Members of the commission will go into closed session. The general session will reconvene at 8:30 tomorrow morning.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.